In 1345, a French physician prescribed silk thread for treating headaches, believing it absorbed evil spirits. The air was heavy with the scent of lavender and pine from nearby herbs, while the cold stone floor felt unyielding beneath bare feet. What if this remedy actually worked? What strange methods did medieval doctors employ to heal? If you're listening to this to fall asleep, that's exactly why I make these. Drop a comment and tell me where you are and what time it is. I read every single one. The sound of distant chanting fades into the night as we delve into tales of unusual cures that actually worked. The earthy scent of damp soil clings to your fingers as you walk through a medieval village market. The air is thick with the aroma of roasting meat and freshly baked bread, mingling with the occasional whiff of horse manure from the stalls nearby. You can feel the weight of an old leather satchel in one hand, its contents, various herbs, and a small vial of what you hope to be your unlikely secret ingredient that you've spent all day gathering. As night draws near, the villagers begin to crowd around their fires, casting long shadows across the cobblestones. The sound of hushed whispers and occasional laughter carries on the breeze. You notice a group gathered by one particular fire, its light flickering orange against the darkening sky. Your curiosity is piqued. What secret does this group know that you do not? You approach cautiously, your footsteps crunching softly on the gravel path. The air around the fire seems warmer and more inviting than elsewhere in the village. A woman with a round face and kind eyes looks up at you, her voice carrying the warmth of the flames. "Good evening to you," she says, gesturing for you to sit beside her. "What brings such a curious person like yourself into our humble midst?" You hesitate only briefly before responding, feeling the leather satchel in your lap as if it were laden with secrets. "I have been wandering far and wide, seeking knowledge of remedies that might help those in need." She nods thoughtfully, her eyes narrowing slightly as she examines you. "Are a seeker of truths then? Very well. You are welcome to stay for the night." She gestures towards another fire where several men sit around, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames. One of them, a tall man with a stern expression and a long beard, catches your eye. He stands up as you approach his group, addressing you in a booming voice that carries just enough authority to make others quiet down for a moment. "Speak freely," he says, "for we gather here tonight because something unusual has been happening." You feel the weight of the satchel shift slightly at this news. Your fingers curl around it instinctively, as if it were offering comfort and assurance in your uncertain journey. "I something indeed," the woman from before speaks up again, her tone soft but firm. "A medicine man from these parts has been performing cures that seem almost magical. Magic." The word sends a shiver down your spine, yet you find yourself drawn to the story despite its fantastical nature. "He uses an ingredient in his concoctions," she continues, "one no one else knows about. It's said he found it growing wild in these very woods not far from here." She pauses and looks around, as if trying to gauge your reaction. You sense a hint of excitement in her voice, as though sharing this secret is an act almost sacred. "What ingredient could possibly work such wonders?" you ask, the satchel's contents now feeling like an anchor dragging at your resolve. The man with the stern expression speaks next, his voice low and serious. "It's rumored to be a flower," he says, "found in the deepest part of the forest, where even seasoned hunters dare not tread." His eyes meet yours for a moment before looking away again, as if wary of revealing too much. You can almost taste the suspense in the air. It hangs thick and heavy. "Does this ingredient have a name?" You press, your fingers tightening around the leather satchel once more. The woman's round face lights up with a knowing smile. "No names," she says softly, "only whispers of its existence. It is said to be called the unlikely secret ingredient." Her words linger in the cool evening air like a promise whispered on the wind. You feel your heart rate quicken as you consider this new information. The unlikely secret ingredient, it's not just any herb or root, but something mysterious and powerful that could change everything. And it grows wild when no one dares to go alone. The group around the fire seems to sense your growing interest. They lean in closer, their voices lowering conspiratorially as if sharing a secret between friends. You sit back on the ground, feeling the roughness of the stone beneath you and the warmth of the fire against your face. What is it about this ingredient that makes such an impact? You ask, curiosity bubbling within you like a simmering cauldron ready to boil over at any moment. The woman with kind eyes speaks again, her voice soft but filled with a hidden depth. "It's said," she begins, "that when combined correctly with other herbs and roots from the village, it can cure ailments that were once thought incurable." She pauses for effect, allowing the weight of those words to sink in. "And what makes you say this?" you ask, your voice tinged with a hint of skepticism. The stern man speaks up next, his eyes narrowing as if he's preparing to share something important. "Villagers have been coming from miles around seeking out our medicine man," he explains, "and returning home with not just improved health, but renewed hope." He looks directly at you, almost daring you to question him further. The tension in the air is palpable. It's as if a storm of secrets and knowledge has gathered over the fire. The woman nods in agreement, her round face glowing warmly. "He speaks only in riddles," she says softly, "but his remedies have proven effective time and again." She pauses for emphasis before continuing, and now others are starting to notice the difference. You can feel a growing sense of urgency within you. The satchel's contents seem heavier by comparison, as if they were somehow tied to this mysterious ingredient. The unlikely secret ingredient, it sounds like something that could not only change your life, but potentially transform an entire village. "What about its appearance?" you ask, trying to keep the excitement out of your voice. "Can anyone find it?" The woman's face takes on a wistful expression, as if she is recalling a cherished memory. "It blooms at midnight," she says, her eyes reflecting the flickering light of the fire. "And only in the presence of full moonlight." She glances towards the sky, where a crescent moon has just begun to rise, casting its silvery glow upon everything it touches. You can feel your breath catch as you realize what this means. Tonight is the night. The unlikely secret ingredient blooming at midnight under the full moon sounds like a myth come alive. "And how do we find our way through the forest alone?" you ask, feeling the tension in your muscles tighten with every word. "It's not safe after dark." The stern man speaks up again, his voice firm and resolute. We've had to rely on old maps, he says, reaching into a nearby sack and pulling out several crinkled pieces of parchment. He hands them over to you, their edges torn from years of handling. You must learn these by heart if you wish to venture forth. His tone is authoritative, but not unkind. There's something in his gaze that suggests he understands the allure of such a challenge. You take the maps carefully, unfolding each one on your lap. They depict winding paths and dense forests filled with symbols and markings, signposts for those brave enough to seek out the unlikely secret ingredient at its most powerful moment. Will it truly be as effective when I find it? You ask, feeling a mixture of hope and doubt swirling within you like autumn leaves caught in a gusty wind. The woman smiles gently, her kind eyes full of understanding. It is said, she says softly, that only those who truly seek the truth can find what they need. Her words linger on your tongue like honeyed nectar before trailing off into silence, as if offering you space to consider their meaning. You feel a growing sense of resolve wash over you. The unlikely secret ingredient. This is more than just an herb or root. It's a key, perhaps the only one that could unlock the mysteries and remedies that have eluded so many in your journey thus far. And now, with this knowledge, you are ready to embark on what might be the most dangerous yet rewarding quest of all. As night deepens around you and the fire flickers lower, casting long shadows across the stones, a sense of anticipation begins to build within you. The unlikely secret ingredient, what secrets does it hold? What miracles can it perform? You close your eyes briefly, allowing yourself to be carried away by the promise of what lies ahead. And as you open them once more under the silvery moonlight, you feel the leather satchel's weight pressing against your thigh, a silent reminder that tonight marks the beginning of a journey unlike any other. And as you open them once more under the silvery moonlight, you feel the leather satchel's weight pressing against your thigh, a silent reminder that tonight marks the beginning of a journey unlike any other. The air outside whispers with the cool evening chill, carrying with it the faint scent of pine from the nearby forest. You pull the satchel closer to your chest, and its musty interior smells begin to mingle with the earthiness of the night. The leather has softened over time, but still retains a hint of the tannins used in dyeing. You sit on a weathered wooden stool by the hearth, the flames dancing merrily inside the large stone fireplace, casting flickering shadows across the walls. The fire's warmth seeps into your bones, providing comfort against the chill that clings to this old castle keep. You have come here for an answer, a solution to a plague that has swept through villages and castles alike. The satchel contains what seems like an ordinary collection of items: a few herbs in dried leaves, a small vial filled with liquid, some beeswax seals, and several pages of parchment. Each item is meticulously arranged, as if by someone who knows exactly where everything should be. You take out the first page. It's covered with tiny script that seems to dance before your eyes. As you hold up the page against the firelight, the words come alive in a way they never did back then. Common spices, one word stands out, and as if by magic, your nose catches a hint of cinnamon, a warm, sweet fragrance that draws you deeper into this narrative. The satchel's weight shifts slightly on your thigh, grounding you to the moment. You flip through more pages, finding detailed instructions for concocting an elixir from these spices: cinnamon, black pepper, ginger, and cardamom, and a mysterious substance known only as dragon's breath. Dragon's breath was said to be sourced from the scales of mythical creatures, but could also refer to something entirely mundane. You can almost imagine the scale in your hand now, its rough texture sending shivers down your spine. The instructions call for grinding these ingredients together into a paste with mortar and pestle, a task that would take hours under the flickering light. The idea seems absurd. How could such simple things cure what seemed like an unstoppable plague? Yet here you are, holding the very documents that might hold the key to salvation. As your fingers trace over the parchment's aged surface, you feel a small weight in one of the pockets at the bottom of the satchel. You pull it out and find 2 coins, silver pieces with their edges worn smooth from years of handling. They are not much, but they represent an effort made by someone who believed in this cure. You decide to test the recipe yourself before sharing it further afield. The ingredients seem harmless enough, just spices you find in any kitchen at market. You gather them all, cinnamon sticks as thick as your thumb, black pepper pods that rattle when shaken, ginger root long and knobby, cardamom pods with their distinctive ridges. The mortar is heavy but familiar. It's one of those things that always seems to be around in kitchens. The pestle fits perfectly inside, its wooden handle smooth from years of use. You grind the spices together, a rhythmic motion that soothes your mind as you blend them into a paste, with just enough water added for it to stick. As you work, the room fills with the rich aroma of cinnamon and cardamom, spices so common yet never smelled quite like this before. Ginger's earthy scent intermingles with black pepper, creating an unexpected harmony that almost makes you forget why you're here in the first place. The dragon's breath remains a mystery. Perhaps it was just another spice. You mix these ingredients into a small metal bowl and let them sit for what seems like hours, but is probably only 10 minutes or so. Then comes the dragon's breath, a pinch of dried scales that somehow manage to smell both earthy and faintly metallic, as if they've been taken from something far more exotic than mythical creatures. You add it all together, creating a thick paste that would be difficult to swallow in large doses, but just right for mixing with other ingredients. The paste is sticky, making your fingers feel coated even after you wash them several times. You wrap the mixture in cloth and place it on the hearth, where it will stay warm as long as the fire burns. You know this method isn't exactly scientific. There's no control group or double-blind testing here. But desperation leads to strange choices, and sometimes what seems like a gamble pays off. The instructions suggest letting the mixture sit overnight so that the flavors can meld properly. This paste is almost too perfect in its simplicity to be real. As you return to your stool by the fire, you feel a weight settling over you, a mix of fatigue from the journey here and the knowledge that what lies ahead could change everything. The pastes are ready. Now comes the hard part, distributing them across villages where people are dying in their tens or hundreds each day. You place one paste into an earthenware pot, sealing it with a wax seal to prevent contamination. Another goes into another container, and then you do this over again until all pastes are safely stored away. The leather satchel feels lighter now. The weight of responsibility has shifted from your thigh to your heart. You close the satchel carefully, tucking it back beneath the wooden stool where no one will find it except perhaps in dire need. Outside, the night carries on with its usual quiet. Birds call softly as they settle for the night, and a gentle breeze rustles through the trees. Inside, the fire crackles contentedly, providing enough warmth to keep you from freezing. You lean back against the rough stone wall, your feet almost touching the hearth's edge where the paste sits. The room is still after all the work done. Only the occasional hiss of the fire breaks the silence. You feel a small sense of satisfaction mixed with trepidation. This cure might just save thousands from death, or it could be nothing more than wishful thinking. As you ponder your next steps, you realize that perhaps this journey isn't so different from any other in its ultimate goal, to make a difference where none seemed possible before. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of the fire seep into your bones and ease away some of the day's weariness. The paste is ready. Now comes the hard part, distributing it across villages where people are dying in their tens or hundreds each day. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of the fire seep into your bones and ease away some of the day's weariness. The hearth crackles softly, casting flickering shadows on the makeshift walls around you. Outside, the village is quiet. Only a few faint cries from a nearby home break through the silence. You know better than to hope for peace in these times. The paste was ready, pale green and thick, with an earthy fragrance that clung to your fingers as if trying to hold onto the moment of its creation. Each container held enough to treat at least 20 people. You had mixed just enough to last a few more days before running out again. But this wasn't just any paste. It was garlic, crushed and soaked in vinegar for days until it gained strength from both ingredients. Now comes the hard part, distributing it across villages where people are dying in their tens or hundreds each day. The plague had swept through like wildfire, leaving destruction in its wake. In just a few short months, once thriving communities lay abandoned or overrun, with desperate souls seeking any form of comfort. Your mission was simple yet daunting, to save as many lives as possible before the disease could claim them all. You gather your supplies, 2 large containers filled with the garlic paste, and an equal amount in smaller, easily transportable vials for those who might not have access to a proper container. A small bag holds enough vinegar for making more paste on the go, along with a few other essentials like bandages, ointments, and some dried herbs for soothing teas. The village elder has promised you safe passage. His young apprentice will lead you from house to house, ensuring your journey is not impeded by fear or hostility. The first stop is the most pressing. Just down the hill lies a cluster of huts where the villagers whisper that several families are already under siege by the plague. The air hums with tension as you approach. Small fires flicker in every doorway, casting eerie shadows and masking the sounds inside. A young boy meets you at the entrance, eyes wide behind his grime-streaked face. "Sir," he says hesitantly, "my mother, she's sick." You nod understandingly, reaching into your bag to pull out a small vial of garlic paste. "I have something that might help her." You hand it over carefully, explaining the process as you watch his expression shift from fear to hope. Is everyone going to be okay?" he asks quietly. "We'll do our best," you reply softly, patting him on the shoulder before moving deeper into the hut. The air inside is thick, with a mixture of sickness and despair. Your heart clenches at the sight of two adults lying weakly on straw pallets while their children huddle around them, tears streaming down their faces. You begin by making a warm tea from crushed herbs and adding in some vinegar to create an antiseptic wash. As you work, you notice several other households along the path showing signs of infection, some coughing fitfully, others with swollen lymph nodes barely visible through thin fabric. You realize that this task will not be easy. Time is running out. The village elder arrives soon after, bringing supplies and more information about nearby cases. He shares stories of his own family members falling ill, their cries for help often going unanswered due to fear or apathy from those uninfected. Yet there remains a glimmer of hope, a small group of villagers who have banded together to care for the sick, despite the risks. Together with your guides and this new network forming around you, you continue through the village, treating as many people as possible while spreading knowledge about proper hygiene practices. Soap becomes scarce, so you improvise using ashes mixed with water. Boiling food is suggested, but not always feasible in every household, leading to further complications. Still, even these simple measures can make a significant difference. As night falls and your group retreats for the evening, there's an unexpected turn of events that shakes everyone. Word spreads about another cluster of infected just outside town, where many more are suffering desperately. The village elder looks grave as he explains how news traveled quickly among them. Perhaps others would join forces with you tomorrow if they knew their efforts weren't in vain. With renewed determination, you prepare for the next day's journey despite knowing full well that this plague will likely never fully disappear. But every life saved is a battle won against its relentless march through medieval Europe. And so, under starlight and moonbeams, your mission continues, a tale of bravery, compassion, and hope amidst an age when such virtues were often forgotten in the shadow of death. The road ahead remains long, filled with challenges both physical and emotional, but together you stand ready to face whatever comes next, knowing that even a common spice like garlic can change everything. The weight of your satchel hangs heavy on your arm, its leather creaking softly with each step you take along the cobblestone path. You have been traveling for what feels like days now, and though the morning sun is just beginning to rise, its light does little to warm this gloomy stretch of forest. The air is thick with mist that clings to your skin like a damp shroud, making it hard to breathe. As you trudge along, the scent of damp earth intermingles with the faint, pungent aroma of garlic wafting from the pouch in your hand. You had found this little treasure tucked into the lining of an old tunic during one of many rummages through a dusty chest in a forgotten manor house. The leather was worn and patched, but it still clung to its shape with surprising tenacity. You pause for a moment, letting the weight settle as you listen to the rhythmic sound of your own footsteps on stone. It is a simple noise, monotonous yet somehow comforting, like the beating of a heart or the hum of a loom. The path stretches out before you like an endless ribbon snaking through time and space. A sudden creak draws your attention. A small wooden bridge spans the narrow stream that cuts across the trail. It is old and weathered, its planks groaning underfoot, as if protesting being trodden upon after so many years of neglect. You step onto it with a cautious tread, each footfall sending shivers down your spine from both the cold water below and the creaking boards above. The bridge feels ancient. You can almost imagine the first travelers who crossed this span centuries ago, their feet just like yours. They too were likely seeking something of value, perhaps wealth or knowledge, or perhaps just a safe passage through these woods. The weight in your satchel is more than just garlic now. It's a symbol of all those past journeys and struggles. As you cross the bridge, the smell of damp earth gives way to that of smoke curling from a distant chimney. You know it marks the edge of civilization, of safety, if only for another night. The path widens as you emerge into what looks like a small village. It is quiet here, with just a few figures visible in the early morning light. A woman in simple woolen garb stands by her door, stirring something in an iron pot over embers that flicker and crackle in the cold. She glances up at your approach, her expression curious but not hostile as she continues to work. The village seems alive, yet still asleep, like a creature waking from a deep slumber. You notice a small pouch hanging on a hook by the door, a leather bag similar to yours, except it is filled with something that makes its owner's hands tremble slightly: silver coins. You wonder if this woman might trade some of her bounty for your garlic, or perhaps she has already done so and simply keeps them as a reminder. The weight in your own satchel feels heavier now, the cloves clinking softly together. You remember the old man who had given it to you, his weathered face crinkled with age, but eyes bright with knowledge. He told you of this garlic that was more than just food, of its healing properties and how it could ward off sickness. As if on cue, a child runs out from behind the next building, a young boy with freckles dotting his nose and hair tousled by sleep. He stops short at your appearance, eyes wide as he takes in what you carry. "Garlic," he whispers, voice full of wonder, before darting back inside. The weight now is both a burden and a treasure, each clove holding within it the potential for curing ailments that seemed beyond remedy. You remember how the old man spoke of garlic's ability to cleanse the body, its pungency capable of driving out even the most stubborn of infections. It was said in some distant lands where winters were harsh and diseases ran rampant, people lived by this simple truth. The village begins to stir around you now, women carrying buckets filled with water from nearby wells, men emerging from their homes for a quick stretch before work starts anew. The air is filled with the sounds of life resuming, children's laughter mingling with dogs barking and chickens clucking in the background. You can see why people valued garlic so much here. It wasn't just about taste or medicinal properties anymore. It had become something more, a symbol of resilience, a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary things held extraordinary power. The old man had said as much when he handed you this pouch, his eyes twinkling with wisdom as if sharing secrets whispered only to those who truly sought them. As you walk through the village streets lined with simple cottages and workshops, you find yourself thinking about how different life must be here compared to other places you've known. In some distant cities where wealth flowed like water, people might scoff at such beliefs. But in this quiet hamlet on the edge of a forest, every herb had its purpose. You hear snippets of conversation carried by the breeze, a mother instructing her daughter how to properly prepare garlic for cooking, an old man reciting the virtues of various plants while tending his small garden. Each sound adds another layer to this tapestry of daily life, a reminder that even in such humble surroundings, there was beauty and complexity. The weight of your satchel becomes almost comforting now, like a familiar friend walking alongside you. You continue through the village, noticing how the villagers interact with each other. Greetings exchanged over shared tasks or laughter breaking out when children chase one another playfully down dirt paths. Everyone seems to know everyone else here. There's an unspoken bond that ties them together despite their simple living conditions. At last, your journey brings you to a small inn nestled at the edge of town, its wooden sign creaking gently in the gentle morning breeze. The building is modest but well kept, with smoke rising lazily from its chimney and warmth emanating from within. You push open the door slowly, feeling both anticipation and relief as you step into the cool interior. Inside, a fire crackles merrily in the hearth, casting flickering shadows across the room. The walls are lined with wooden shelves, holding everything from jars of herbs to old books bound in leather. A few travelers are seated at tables scattered about, sipping warming beverages and chatting softly among themselves. The air is filled with a blend of scents, freshly brewed tea mingling with hints of smoke and the subtle fragrance of various plants. A young woman looks up from her work as you enter, her eyes widening slightly before she quickly returns to what appears to be stitching intricate patterns onto fabric cut from rough cloth. She glances at your satchel but says nothing, perhaps recognizing its significance without needing further explanation. You make your way towards a table by the window where another traveler sits engrossed in reading. "Good morrow," you say softly, taking a seat opposite them and placing the pouch on the table with deliberate care. "I came across this while traveling through these woods. May I ask what you think of it?" The man looks up from his book, his expression thoughtful as he regards the leather bag containing your garlic cloves. After a moment's consideration, he replies, "Garlic. An unusual find, indeed. Yet one cannot deny its value in both culinary and medicinal arts." You nod slowly, feeling the weight of the pouch shift slightly against your hand, a silent companion ready to be shared or held as needed. As you continue talking about its properties, you realize that this common spice has far more importance than meets the eye, especially when faced with challenges beyond ordinary means. The day passes in a blur of conversation and activity within the inn. Tales are told around the fire late into the night, while others huddle close together for warmth. Each person here carries their own stories and struggles, yet there's an underlying sense of unity, a shared understanding that no matter where life takes us, ordinary things can sometimes hold extraordinary value. As dawn breaks once more, you realize your journey has only just begun, yet it is one filled with the potential to change lives in ways both small and profound. The weight in your satchel remains constant, a reminder of all those before who sought simple yet powerful solutions amidst adversity. And as the sun rises higher on this new day, you feel a renewed sense of purpose, a conviction that perhaps even seemingly ordinary treasures like garlic can indeed alter destinies forever. The road ahead stretches out endlessly once more, beyond the village and into untold mysteries waiting to be explored. But with each step forward, you carry not just physical burdens, but also the weight of knowledge and hope, both fragile yet enduring forces capable of transforming even the most ordinary days into something extraordinary. The warmth of the evening fire crackles and pops within your hands, each ember casting a gentle glow upon the wooden table strewn with herbs, roots, and strange concoctions. The smell of resin and earthy soil mixes with something slightly metallic, a hint of copper in the air that you know well from too many heated discussions about bloodletting gone wrong. You sigh deeply as your fingers run over the smooth surface of a gourd filled with what appears to be some form of liquid remedy, its contents an odd mixture of green and brown, thick enough to coat your fingertips when you dip them in. To your left stands another table, laden with scrolls detailing recipes that seem almost magical, ingredients sourced from places only whispered about in distant lands. The air is heavy with the scent of lavender and myrrh, both calming yet potent scents that have been used for centuries to treat everything from headaches to mental anguish. To the right, a small fire burns brightly despite the mild evening chill, casting dancing shadows across your leather apron as you knead it against the rough stone beside you. The room is dimly lit by several oil lamps hanging from overhead chains, their light flickering and occasionally catching on the frayed edges of parchment. Shadows play along the walls, making them seem alive with secrets that could be whispered at any moment. Outside, the distant sound of laughter carries through the open window, a reminder that not all concerns are medical or scholarly in nature. You sit down heavily upon a hard wooden chair, letting your weary legs finally rest. The leather creaks under your weight as you sink into it, feeling the slight indentations left by hours spent poring over texts and concocting remedies. Your eyes scan the room again, taking in all the details that have become so familiar, yet still feel like a puzzle waiting to be solved. The night is calm outside, save for the occasional rustle of leaves or chirp of crickets. Inside, however, there's an undercurrent of tension, a feeling that something isn't quite right. The air hums with unspoken questions and unresolved disputes, all hanging heavily in this small, cluttered space where knowledge and magic meet. Your apprentice, a young scribe named Isolde, stands nearby, her eyes wide as she watches you move about the room. Her hands fidget nervously at her sides, fingers twitching as if trying to grasp onto something, perhaps a bit of your confidence or a spark of inspiration that could light up this dimly lit chamber. "Is there anything else I can do?" she asks quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. You smile gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "No need for you tonight, Isolde," you say softly. "Just stay here and keep an eye out." She nods, relief washing over her face, as if a great burden has been lifted from her shoulders. You watch her retreat to the edge of the room, where she sits down cross-legged on the floor with a small leather-bound book in her lap, likely jotting down notes or diagrams for future reference. Your gaze returns to the center of the table before you, where an array of ingredients lays out like pieces waiting to be assembled into some grand formula. You run your fingers over one particularly large root, a piece of mandrake that has been carefully prepared and dried. Its surface is rough, yet oddly comforting in its familiarity, a constant reminder that even amidst all this chaos, there are things you can count on. You pick up the gourd once more, tilting it to inspect what lies within. The liquid inside shimmers like dark honey under your lamp's light, giving off an almost unsettling glow as if hinting at secrets yet to be uncovered. You bring a finger to the surface, feeling its viscosity and texture, slightly sticky but not unpleasantly so. Is there anything different tonight? You ask aloud, mostly for show since everyone knows the answer already. The fire crackles again, drawing your attention back down into the depths of your work. You lean forward slightly, peering closely at one particularly interesting ingredient, a small vial filled with a clear, almost luminescent liquid. It's the kind that only comes from certain rare insects found deep within dark forests, hard to source and even harder to use properly without causing more harm than good. Yet here it is before you, waiting for another attempt at perfection. The weight of your knowledge presses down on you now, heavy as a stone in an otherwise light heart. Each step forward carries not just physical burdens, but also the weight of knowledge and hope, both fragile yet enduring forces capable of transforming even the most ordinary days into something extraordinary. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of the fire wash over you. Outside, the night grows quieter still, save for the distant creaking of an old door as wind pushes against it gently. Inside, shadows dance more freely now that all is quiet around them, painting patterns on walls and floors alike. Reopening your eyes, you find yourself looking directly at a scroll titled The Night's Cures, a collection of remedies meant to be used specifically during the hours when darkness reigns supreme. Your fingers trace its edge delicately, as if afraid it might disappear in a puff of smoke, were they to touch too roughly. The parchment is old and yellowed, with faint markings that seem almost alive, like tiny whispers urging you towards understanding. You unroll the scroll slowly, letting your eyes drift over lines written in an elegant script that tells stories of ancient healers and their methods. Each word seems to hold power within it, a reminder that even centuries past, people grappled with similar concerns as those facing you now: how best to use available resources, when to trust instinct versus experience, what truly matters most. The smell of old ink and paper fills your nostrils, mingling pleasantly with the familiar odors already present in the room. You breathe deeply, feeling a small surge of calm wash over you, almost as if the very air itself recognizes the importance of this moment. Turning back to Isolde, who has resumed her quiet vigil at the edge of the room, you notice she's now studying a different parchment, one detailing various dreams and their potential meanings. A smile tugs at your lips. Perhaps in moments like these, even an apprentice can find solace or guidance through unexpected means. "Is it time?" Isolde asks softly, her eyes never leaving the page before her. You look up again, seeing the clock tower outside casting its first pale glow across the landscape. It's nearing midnight, the perfect hour to begin whatever magic you might conjure tonight. "Yes," you respond gently. "It is." With that, your fingers return to their work, dipping once more into the gourd and stirring its contents with practiced precision before adding the final ingredient, a pinch of powdered moonstone collected under the light of last night's full moon. As the powder dissolves, releasing tiny sparks that dance across the surface like stars caught in earthly vessels, you close your eyes briefly. The weight of all this, of trying to create something truly effective when so much was at stake, is almost overwhelming but also strangely exhilarating. When you open them again, a small fire has started within the gourd itself, a flame no larger than a candle's wick, yet powerful enough to illuminate everything around it with a warm, golden light. Shadows retreat before its glow, leaving only clarity and purpose. Let this be our guide tonight, you murmur aloud, voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Isolde watches silently as you begin to chant softly, words in an ancient tongue that carries power even now after so many years have passed since they were spoken. The air around you seems to vibrate with energy, drawing together all the disparate elements of knowledge and experience into something greater than any single part could be alone. As your voice grows stronger, so too does the light from within the gourd, growing brighter until it nearly blinds you, but also fills every corner of this small space with warmth and promise. Shadows dance once more, now playing upon walls in intricate patterns that seem almost alive, like tiny spirits watching over this momentous occasion. Isolde leans forward slightly, her eyes wide as she listens to your incantation, participation without intrusion, respect for the process unfolding before them both. The fire crackles louder now, reflecting off every surface and casting dancing reflections upon the walls, each one a testament to effort, dedication, and hope. When at last you finish speaking, silence falls over everything once more, a palpable thing that hangs heavy in this room of secrets and possibilities. You step back slightly, allowing Isolde time to take it all in before turning your attention fully towards her again. "Would you like a taste?" you ask gently, offering the gourd towards her lips with outstretched hand. Isolde hesitates for only an instant, then takes a deep breath and nods. She accepts the invitation, letting the liquid pass lightly over her tongue as if tasting destiny itself in that single sip. It's not until later, long after the last embers have faded into ash on the table, that you realize just how profoundly this moment will shape everything to come, how fragile yet enduring hope can be when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges. The air hangs heavy and thick, with the scent of roasting meats mingling with a hint of damp earth from outside the castle walls. A soft, crackling sound mingles with your breathing, a fire burning low in the great hall, casting flickering shadows across the stone floor. The weight of an old leather-bound tome presses into your hands as you sit by the hearth, fingers tracing its worn surface. It's not until later, long after the last embers have faded into ash on the table, that you realize just how profoundly this moment will shape everything to come, how fragile yet enduring hope can be when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges. The leather tome is thick and heavy, a tangible link back in time. You open it gingerly, feeling its pages crackle slightly under your touch. The smell of aged parchment wafts up, a familiar scent that always carries the weight of centuries past. Your fingers run over the smooth surface as you flip through the worn leather cover to find yourself face to face with an old document, a list, perhaps, or some kind of record kept by long-forgotten hands. There's nothing particularly grand about it at first glance, just a series of notes and scribbles that seem quite ordinary. But something catches your eye, a mention of unusual remedies for common ailments. The ink has faded in places, but still manages to convey an urgency, almost as if the scribe had written quickly under pressure. It's the kind of mundane detail that can slip through unnoticed unless you're looking specifically for it. The light from the fire casts long shadows across the page, making some letters hard to make out. You lean closer, squinting slightly against the flickering flames. The air grows colder as night draws in, and you shiver a little, pulling your cloak tighter around yourself. It's this small discomfort that makes history feel so real, like it could happen just outside those stone walls. The document talks about cures for everything from simple colds to more serious conditions like bubonic plague. One remedy especially catches your attention, a concoction of wormwood and honey used as a treatment against coughing fits, something you'd seen plenty of yourself over the years. But it's not just the remedies that interest you. There's an underlying pattern in how they were recorded. Each note is brief but specific, how much of each herb to use, who tried them out, often someone close to the scribe, and what their outcome was. As you read further, you come across a peculiar entry about a remedy for headaches that involves washing one's hair with a mixture of vinegar and sage leaves. This seems almost quaint now, but back then it might have been considered quite radical. You chuckle softly to yourself as you imagine the confusion or perhaps even amusement such an idea would cause among your peers. The scribe's hand, though skilled, shows signs of wear and tear from years spent writing, lines crisscrossing each other in a way that speaks volumes about his patience and dedication. Each word carries with it stories of struggles, successes, and failures, all recorded meticulously for posterity. It's easy to get lost in the details here, the texture of the parchment beneath your fingers, the warmth of the fire surrounding you, and the quietness of this moment. Yet there's a nagging feeling that something isn't quite right with these notes, something significant enough to keep them secreted away like hidden treasures. You can almost hear the scribe whispering warnings about not sharing certain remedies out loud. Perhaps he feared retribution from those who thought their methods were sacred or divine. The gravity of such knowledge makes your heart race slightly, and you find yourself pausing frequently as if trying to absorb every single word. Your eyes move down the page, taking in a description of how wormwood can be used not just for coughs, but also as an insect repellent, something quite practical given the swarms of flies that often plagued these parts. You chuckle again, feeling almost nostalgic for simpler times when such common sense could bring relief from minor annoyances. As you delve deeper into the document, your mind wanders to thoughts of what life might have been like back then. The castle walls seem more substantial now, their stones cold and unyielding against your skin. Outside, the night is alive with distant calls of owls and hoots of foxes, sounds that blend seamlessly with the crackling of wood in the fire. It's not just the remedies listed here that intrigue you, it's how they fit into everyday life. People often turned to these practices when conventional medicine failed them, relying on local plants and herbs for healing purposes. The scribe seems well-versed in both common knowledge and more esoteric lore, someone who had sought out answers where others might have given up. One remedy stands out even among the many, a combination of garlic, onions, and elderflower used to treat fevers that often left people bedridden or worse. The note mentions how it worked wonders for Lady Isolde's daughter back in 1398, how her fever broke within hours after applying this mixture. It's moments like these when history feels personal, a connection between past struggles and present ones. You find yourself smiling softly as you recall similar instances from your own life, where natural remedies provided comfort during illnesses. The weight of the document presses down slightly, grounding you in reality while also lifting a veil over long-forgotten stories waiting to be rediscovered. As midnight approaches, you close the leather tome with a soft thud and wrap yourself tighter in your cloak against the growing chill. Outside, darkness envelops everything, stars glinting like distant fireflies through the gaps between clouds. Inside this warm embrace of stone and wood, however, history pulses softly, alive and relevant despite the centuries that have passed. Your thoughts drift back to Lady Isolde's daughter, her fever breaking so swiftly thanks to these simple yet effective remedies. It's a reminder that even in times where magic seemed commonplace, practical knowledge remained essential for survival. These cures worked because they were based on observation, experience, and sometimes just sheer luck, traits that continue to hold value today. You can almost hear the scribe now, his voice echoing softly through time as he imparts these valuable lessons. The weight of responsibility settles upon you, a tiny piece in a much larger tapestry of knowledge being passed down from one generation to another. And though this moment may seem small and insignificant compared to grand historical events or epic battles, it holds within its pages the very essence of human resilience. With each passing page turned, your understanding deepens, not just about medieval remedies, but also about the enduring spirit that drives people forward in search of answers when faced with adversity. It's a reminder that even amidst chaos and uncertainty, there lies potential for progress and healing, lessons applicable to our world today as they were back then. Outside, the night grows colder still, but inside this cozy space, warmth radiates from every corner, the fire flickering gently in rhythm with your breathing. As you prepare to put everything away once more, you can't help but feel a sense of connection, a bond formed between past and present through these humble documents that tell stories of struggle, triumph, and the unending human quest for knowledge. It's not until finally closing this ancient tome and setting it aside, feeling its weight disappear from your hands, that reality sinks in fully. The simplicity of these remedies, their effectiveness despite centuries of change, these things are more than just historical curiosities. They remind us of something fundamental about ourselves, the power we possess when drawing upon the wisdom of those who came before. In this quiet moment, surrounded by the comforting glow of firelight and the tangible weight of knowledge in your hands, you realize that perhaps there's still much to be gained from looking back at these unusual medieval cures. They may not have been perfect solutions for every problem, but they did work, and in doing so, they shaped lives then just as relevantly today. As you rise to leave this cozy sanctuary of warmth and light, the last embers sending off gentle sparks into the night sky, a small smile plays upon your lips. For even though the world has changed drastically since those days long ago, the essence of human ingenuity remains constant, a testament not just to our past, but also to our enduring spirit capable of finding solace in unexpected places. And so, with these thoughts lingering softly within you, you step out into the cool night air, carrying forward a newfound appreciation for history's quiet revelations. For it is often through such small details that we uncover profound truths, truths about resilience, hope, and the unbreakable human will to survive against all odds. The soft hum of crickets intertwines with the gentle creaking of wooden beams, a symphony that has accompanied you through countless nights in this medieval hall. The air here whispers secrets of ages past, heavy with the scent of aged parchment and the faint tang of wet leather from nearby satchels. Your fingers brush against a rough stone wall, its surface cool to the touch as night falls over the land. It is often through such small details that we uncover profound truths, truths about resilience, hope, and the unbreakable human will to survive against all odds. Yet even in this seemingly insignificant world of yesteryears, there are three things nobody ever taught you about this era: how they truly lived their daily lives, what remedies worked better than anyone imagined, and why certain beliefs persisted despite mounting evidence. Imagine sitting by a fire in the dead of night, the crackling wood casting flickering shadows on the walls. You hold tightly to an old leather-bound book, its pages brittle with age, as you search for answers that may just change your perspective entirely. The weight of this knowledge presses down upon you, a heavy burden lifted from centuries past. In the mundane world of everyday life, people grappled not only with basic survival, but also with ailments both minor and dire. They brewed potions in basements lit by candlelight, concocting remedies that seemed as magical as any fairy tale, yet strangely effective. Take, for instance, the humble garlic soup, a simple dish that, through centuries of use, was found to alleviate more than just colds. You prepare a bowl of this ancient remedy, its warm broth filled with chunks of fresh, slightly roasted garlic. The cloves press against your teeth as you chew, their pungent flavor mingling with the richness of herbs and spices. The soup's warmth spreads through your body like an embrace from long ago ancestors. Little did they know that this simple dish would fight off more than just a sniffle. In those days, the air was thick with superstition, but also filled with practical knowledge passed down through generations. People believed in everything under the sun, from herbal elixirs to mystical remedies involving unicorn horns, which were actually made from rhino tusks, and dragon's teeth, often found in old shoes. Yet among these tales of fantasy, there are grains of truth that shine brightly. For example, a concoction known as holy water was not just blessed by priests, but also mixed with various plants to create an elixir rumored to cure all ills. In reality, this mixture contained ingredients like mint and chamomile, which indeed had soothing properties for the mind and body. The placebo effect cannot be underestimated. The belief that something would work often made it more effective than one might think. Another remedy worth considering is the use of honey, a golden substance both sweet and healing. Applied directly to wounds or taken in small doses as a syrup, it proved remarkably effective against infections due to its antimicrobial properties. The sticky sweetness clung to your lips as you tasted a spoonful, a reminder that even simple pleasures could have hidden medicinal powers. These remedies might seem like relics of the past, quaint, and perhaps overly simplistic by modern standards. But in their simplicity lies great wisdom. The medieval mind, burdened with fewer distractions than our own, focused intently on what worked rather than what was fashionable or exotic. They trusted not just divine intervention, but also practical observation, something we often lose sight of today. Consider the humble remedy of earth tea, a drink made from various types of clay mixed into water. While it might sound unappetizing, this concoction has been used for centuries to treat digestive issues and other maladies. The Earth's minerals could bind toxins or soothe inflamed tissues, offering relief in ways we now understand through modern science. What if, amidst the superstition and magic, there lay hidden truths waiting to be uncovered? What if these ancient remedies, so often dismissed as mere folklore, held real power within their simplicity? As you sit by the fire, holding that old leather-bound book, you realize something profound. It is not just about what they believed, but how they lived. Their daily lives were filled with small triumphs and crushing defeats, much like your own today. They faced challenges without modern comforts, yet found ways to heal themselves through trial and error. The weight of this knowledge presses down upon you, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is always something worth holding onto, be it a bowl of garlic soup or a belief in simple yet effective remedies. For it is often through such small details that we uncover profound truths, truths about resilience, hope, and the unbreakable human will to survive against all odds. You take another sip of your earth tea, feeling its warmth spread through you like an old friend's embrace. The fire crackles softly in response, a silent companion as you ponder these ancient wisdoms. As night deepens outside, the crickets grow louder, their song a lullaby for weary minds and bodies alike. In this quiet, candle-lit room, you find solace in the knowledge that even centuries ago, people sought to heal themselves with what they had at hand. Their stories remind us of our own capacity for survival, no matter how daunting the odds might seem. As you drift deeper into a peaceful slumber, the scent of lavender from the pillowcase mingling with the gentle aroma of vanilla-infused candles seems to promise sweet dreams and an escape from reality's ills. Outside your window, the stars twinkle like tiny lanterns guiding lost souls through dark nights, while inside this ancient chamber, time itself pauses as if waiting for a moment before it will gently whisper its secrets. You wake with a start, not to the usual alarm of the dawn, but rather an awakening from dreams that were both vivid and enigmatic. The air is thick with history. Each creaking floorboard underfoot seems to carry stories from bygone eras, tales of plagues, wars, and countless lives lived on the edge between life and death. In this quiet room, you find a satchel filled with remedies, each carefully labeled and categorized. The first item is a vial marked aloe vera, its contents shimmering like tiny emeralds under the candlelight. Legend has it that this plant was used as an antiseptic to heal wounds, soothe burns, and quench thirst in times of scarcity. In the medieval era, aloe vera's moisturizing properties were not just for skin, but also for healing digestive issues, making it a versatile ally against the harsh conditions of the day. The second remedy is a small bundle wrapped in linen, labeled wormwood. This herb was more than a mere seasoning. Its bitter taste could act as an appetite stimulant and even help expel parasitic worms. However, its most notorious use came from its inclusion in the infamous mixture known as Welsh draught, which combined wormwood with other ingredients to induce abortions, though this practice is far too sensitive for our current era. The third item, perhaps the most intriguing of all, is a small leather-bound book titled Ars Medicinae. This ancient tome contains knowledge that has been lost in time, but was once essential. It details recipes and procedures for concocting potions from common ingredients found around any medieval household: garlic, vinegar, honey, and how to use these simple tools not just as medicine, but also as preventative measures against disease. As you delve into the pages of Ars Medicinae, you discover that even those who lived centuries ago understood the power of natural remedies. One chapter describes a method for brewing an herbal tea from chamomile, lavender, and lemon balm to ease anxiety and promote restful sleep, a practice still popular today, but given new life by this medieval text. Another section explains how the bark of willow trees could be ground into a powder and used as a pain reliever. While this seems rudimentary compared to modern medications, it was groundbreaking for its time, showcasing an understanding that plants contained compounds with medicinal properties far ahead of their scientific discovery centuries later. You find yourself pondering the wisdom passed down through generations, how the ancients had a deep connection to nature and used every part of the plant kingdom to heal. The book also mentions using garlic not just as food, but in various concoctions for treating colds, infections, and even some forms of poisoning, a testament to their resourcefulness. As you reflect on these unusual cures that actually worked, you can't help but wonder how much more could have been achieved with proper preservation and study. These remedies were passed down orally or through crude documents that didn't survive the test of time, leaving us in awe, yet also feeling a sense of loss for what was once widely known. Yet here in this moment, surrounded by these old secrets and ancient wisdoms, you feel hopeful. For even as we stand on the brink of modern scientific advancements, there is still much to learn from those who came before us. The lessons of resilience, adaptability, and the power of natural healing are not lost, but rather waiting to be rediscovered. As dawn finally breaks through your window, casting a soft golden light into this sanctuary, you carry with you these three things: aloe vera, wormwood, arts medicinae, not just as physical items, but as symbols of enduring knowledge and the unbreakable human spirit. In their presence, you feel a connection to those who fought daily battles against illness and uncertainty, using what little they had to sustain life, and perhaps in doing so, teaching us valuable lessons that still hold true today. The smell of drying herbs and roasting meat hangs heavy in the air, a scent that has become almost familiar after days spent in the village. You feel it as you step into the courtyard, where villagers bustle about their daily tasks, women plucking geese, men hammering out blades on anvils, children chasing each other under the watchful eyes of older siblings. The warmth from the hearth radiates up through your shirt, a comforting touch that seems to pull at every nerve in your body. You stop for a moment beside a group gathered around an old woman, their whispers hushed but full of reverence as they speak of her remedies and cures. She is weaving together strands of herbs with deft fingers, the soft rustle of leaves under her hands almost lullaby-like. Her voice carries over to you in melodic tones. You see here, my dear, how the smell itself can be a powerful healer. In their presence, you feel a connection to those who fought daily battles against illness and uncertainty, using what little they had to sustain life, and perhaps in doing so, teaching us valuable lessons that still hold true today. The old woman pauses her weaving and looks directly at you. Have you ever noticed, she asks gently, how the smell of certain herbs can almost make your head swim with their power? You nod slowly, feeling a weight settle over your shoulders as if in response to an unspoken question. The scent of juniper fills the air around her, sharp and invigorating like the breaths you take after running. She laughs softly, a sound both gentle and knowing. "Ah, yes," she says, "the smell. What many history books leave out is that often what we find most unusual in our cures are simply their scents. You turn to face her fully now, your curiosity piqued by the subtle shift from conversation to lesson. Smell, she continues, is a strange thing. It can speak louder than words and work without saying anything at all. Her eyes crinkle with amusement as she speaks. For instance, have you ever smelled wormwood? You shake your head, though not entirely sure why the question matters in this moment. Ah, yes, she says, her tone now more serious but still warm. Wormwood is a plant that has been used for centuries to repel insects and ease digestion. She brings out a handful of dried leaves from under an old tablecloth, leaves with a bitter green hue, already beginning to turn brown around the edges. Do you know why it works so well? She asks as she carefully crushes them between her fingers. The scent that emerges is harsh and pungent, a smell both medicinal and earthy all at once. You can almost feel the air change as this new fragrance fills your nostrils, heavy with its potency. She holds a handful up to you, letting it waft in front of your face before lowering it back down again. Smell is not just detected by our noses, she explains. It travels right into our bodies. The chemical compounds within wormwood bind directly to receptors in the brain and nervous system, creating an almost immediate physical response. You take a deep breath, letting that scent linger for a moment before exhaling slowly. You can taste it on your tongue. It's not just about what you smell, but how deeply it affects every part of you. Do you see? She asks again, her voice soft and patient. That is why certain herbs are used in exactly the form they come from, not ground into powders or pressed into oils. They rely on their natural state to work, often more effectively than when altered. You nod slowly, trying to process this new way of thinking about healing. Now, she says, changing her tone slightly, imagine a world where all we have are these herbs and our understanding of smell. She gestures around the courtyard. This is what people faced centuries ago. They didn't know why certain smells worked or how they could harness them effectively. Instead, their reliance was based on tradition passed down from one generation to another. You look out at the village now, seeing it anew through her words. The sound of children laughing carries across the courtyard, a reminder that even in a world so different from our own, these people still found moments of joy and connection. Can you feel how they might have used smell as a form of communication? She asks softly. When two strangers met at an inn or market, perhaps they would exchange small bundles of herbs to signify their trust or intentions. You nod again, picturing such interactions unfolding around you, smell becoming not just a sense, but almost like another language. Smells could convey emotions and meanings that went beyond mere words, she continues. They spoke volumes without needing to be said aloud. The old woman points towards the herbs in her hands, still feeling their weight as if they were precious jewels rather than simple plants. And yet, you hear yourself say softly, more out of surprise than anything else, we often overlook such subtleties when studying these times. Indeed we do, she agrees with a small smile. But what if the date on that stone is correct and everything else is wrong? What if our understanding has been skewed by centuries of misinformation? You feel a warmth spreading through your chest at her words, as though you are being given permission to question things long taken for granted. So next time, she says, handing some wormwood leaves back into the cloth. Next time you smell something that makes your head spin or fills you with unexpected feelings, listen closely and see what it might be trying to tell you. She waves goodbye as you continue towards your home, the scent of wormwood still lingering in your mind, a reminder not just of history, but of the many unspoken languages we carry within us. As you step into your familiar home after a day filled with unexpected revelations and lingering scents, the warmth envelops you like an old friend. The air is still thick, with the faint aroma of wormwood that clings to your clothes and skin, a testament to the world beyond the mundane. You sit down by the fire, its gentle glow casting shadows across the room, drawing your thoughts back to what you've learned today. The day's events swirl in your mind like a tempest. How could such simple herbs have been so effective? The wormwood, used as a bitter tonic for more than just its taste. The vervain, believed to ward off evil spirits and purify the soul. Each herb carried with it stories of efficacy, yet these tales were rarely told in the hushed tones of history books or whispered among scholars. You take out your journal from earlier that day, pages filled with notes on the herbs, their properties, and the cures they promised. As you read through them again, a sense of wonder fills you, mingling with the curiosity that drives your quest for knowledge. The wormwood, known not just as an emetic or a diuretic, but also for its antiseptic qualities, could have been crucial in treating wounds and infections during medieval times. But it is the vervain's story that truly captures your imagination, the belief that it protected against witchcraft and sorcery, used to cleanse homes of malevolent spirits. These practices were not just superstitions, they held a profound connection between physical health and spiritual well-being, a holistic approach that modern medicine often overlooks. The door creaks slightly as you enter the kitchen, where the sound of water boiling suggests your mother is preparing tea for later. As you pour yourself some cold water to sip on, the taste reminds you of another herb, mandrake. The legend of its power was so potent that it could cure paralysis and restore youth. Yet, when harvested, a person had to do so in darkness or risk being killed by its scream. Despite these warnings, mandrake remained an intriguing ingredient in many medieval remedies. Your thoughts drift back to the herbalist who shared her knowledge with you, her gentle hands moving over each plant as if they were old friends. Her stories about using stinging nettle for arthritis and dandelion root for liver issues paint a vivid picture of everyday life, where these plants weren't just ingredients in meals, but healers themselves. As the fire crackles louder, its heat radiating warmth into your bones, you realize that history isn't merely written pages or dates. It's also carried within the very herbs and remedies passed down through generations. These cures worked not because of science as we know it today, but due to a deep understanding of nature's complexities, something lost in our fast-paced world. You reach for your journal once more, penning down your reflections on these unusual medieval cures that actually worked. The lines you write are slow and deliberate, each word capturing the essence of what you've learned, a reminder not only of the past, but also a call to remember the wisdom embedded within it. As darkness falls outside, casting long shadows across the room, you feel a newfound appreciation for the world around you, its mysteries waiting just beneath the surface. Outside, the night is quiet, save for the distant sounds of the city coming alive with its own stories and secrets. The air still carries whispers of wormwood, vervain, mandrake, a reminder that even in this modern age, there are lessons to be learned from history's unspoken languages. The air still carries whispers of wormwood, vervain, mandrake, a reminder that even in this modern age, there are lessons to be learned from history's unspoken languages. You can feel the weight of a heavy cloak settling over your shoulders as you walk through the narrow, cobblestone streets of an old medieval town at dusk. The sun is beginning its descent behind the horizon, casting long shadows and a golden glow that dances off the wet stone walls. A gentle breeze stirs, carrying with it scents of wood smoke from nearby hearths, mingling with earthy odors from fields where crops have just been harvested. You pause for a moment at the entrance to an apothecary shop, its doors slightly ajar, letting in shafts of light that dance across the threshold. The weight of your cloak is comforting, though it's old and worn, it keeps you warm against the cooling evening air. As you step inside, a familiar musty smell greets you. Earth, herbs, and something more pungent, the acrid scent of wormwood that clings to everything here. The shop itself is small but packed with shelves lining every wall. Each shelf holds jars filled to the brim, some with liquids, others with powders or dried plants. The jars are labeled in neat handwriting: mandrake root, wormwood tea, vervain elixir. You notice a particularly heavy jar on one of the lower shelves. It's partially open and emits an odd, almost musky aroma that makes your nose twitch. A man with graying hair is sitting behind a cluttered desk filled with more jars and books. He looks up as you approach, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "Ah, good evening," he says in a raspy voice. His name is Eustace, an old herbalist who's been here for decades, known by everyone but never properly named. "Good evening, Master Eustace," you reply, feeling the weight of your pack shifting as you lay it down gently on one of the benches nearby. "I've come to pick up some more wormwood." Eustace nods approvingly and reaches into a jar, pulling out what seems like an unusually large amount for just a few doses. He weighs them carefully before handing over the pouch containing your remedy. As you pay with a silver coin, its cool metal clinking softly against the wooden counter, Eustace leans forward confidentially. "Remember this, wormwood is potent stuff," he says, his voice low and earnest. You glance up at him, feeling the rough texture of his beard beneath your fingers as you adjust it slightly. "Indeed," you say, though in truth, you've heard all about its effects already, how it can soothe digestive issues or even induce sleep when taken in larger quantities. But there's a part of you that wonders if Eustace might know something more, some secret use for wormwood that isn't recorded anywhere. You continue on your way down the street, the heavy cloak still around your shoulders. The evening is growing colder now, and you can feel small beads of sweat forming along your neck despite the chill. Your fingers curl into a fist as you walk, clutching them tightly to keep warm. You pass by several houses where families are preparing their dinners, cooking fires crackling softly inside, smells of roasting meat and boiling vegetables reaching out through open windows. You turn down another narrow alleyway, one that leads deeper into the town's heart. The sound of water becomes clearer as you walk, a gentle babbling stream running beneath your feet. You follow it until you reach an old stone bridge, spanning over what must be a small river or brook. As you stand there for a moment, letting the water splash softly against the stones, you notice something peculiar, a small wooden sign nailed to one side of the bridge, its wood weathered and faded. Curiosity piqued, you approach closer. The writing on it is barely legible now, but still manages to convey an ominous message. Caution, the name nobody would say out loud after the third day. You read this several times, running your fingers over the rough surface of the wood. It's not a name or place that rings any immediate bells. Instead, its very anonymity makes it all the more intriguing. You find yourself standing there for what feels like an eternity, lost in thought. The air around you begins to change as night fully settles in. The sun has completely disappeared below the horizon now, leaving only the faintest pink glow lingering on the distant hills. Shadows stretch long and dark underfoot, making each step feel heavy with uncertainty. You can hear the occasional hoot of an owl or scurry of a mouse somewhere nearby. You decide to continue your journey through these winding streets until you reach the outer edge where the town meets open fields. Here the air becomes fresher, carrying more of nature's scent, damp earth and growing things. As you walk along this boundary between civilization and wildness, you feel a slight breeze pick up, tugging at the edges of your cloak. You notice an old oak tree standing alone in one corner, its massive trunk seeming almost ancient. The bark is thick and rough under your fingertips as you run them over it, feeling the grooves and bumps that have accumulated over countless seasons. You sit down against this tree for a moment, letting yourself sink into its cool embrace. The ground here is softer than elsewhere, loose soil and dead leaves crunching beneath you with each movement. A few small insects flit past your face, their tiny wings creating soft, fluttery sounds that soothe the mind. You take a deep breath, inhaling deeply through your nose. The air carries not just earth, but something else too, a faint hint of mandrake mixed in with everything else. As you sit there for what feels like hours, though time loses its meaning when lost in thought, you begin to wonder about this name nobody dares speak aloud after the third day. What could it be? Something deadly, perhaps, something so terrible that even mentioning it would bring misfortune or worse. But as more thoughts swirl around your mind, another question begins to take hold. What if there's a reason no one speaks its name out loud? Could it simply have been someone's secret, a personal pain too deep for others to bear hearing about? Or is there some hidden truth behind the silence that only those brave enough might uncover? These questions linger as you eventually stand up, stretching your legs and arms. The weight of the day seems lighter now. Perhaps speaking out loud after 3 days isn't just a taboo, but also a ritual in itself, an acknowledgement of resilience or shared sorrow. As night fully descends around you, casting everything into deep shadows, you make your way back towards the town's center, carrying with you not only Wormwood and its secrets, but a newfound curiosity about this enigmatic phrase. The weight of the cloak feels heavier than ever as you walk, each step echoing softly on the cobblestone path. You reach home just before dawn breaks into the sky, bringing with it new light and possibilities for the day ahead. As you lay down your pack near the hearth where warmth still lingers from last night's fire, you can't help but wonder what other secrets might be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered by those brave enough or foolish enough to seek them out. The air here feels different now, charged with a sense of mystery and discovery. As sleep begins to claim your body, the sounds around you fade into silence, only the steady breathing near the hearth remaining as a constant companion until dawn breaks once more. In the quiet of the early morning hours, as dawn painted the sky in hues of pink and orange, you stirred from your slumber with a peculiar sensation. Your body felt lighter than it had ever been before, almost as if you could float on air, a feeling that only deepened the sense of unease that began to coalesce within you. The faint hum of the hearth's embers crackled softly in the silence, their glow casting long shadows across the dimly lit room. You lay there for a moment longer, trying to make sense of your dreams, but all was forgotten as soon as reality set in. Outside the window, the morning light filtered through the small panes like liquid gold, bathing everything in a warm, almost comforting hue. The air smelled of fresh earth and dewy grass, carrying with it a faint scent that seemed to stir something ancient within you. As if summoned by this memory, your mind wandered back to the days prior, when you first stumbled upon these cures hidden away in an old tome from the forgotten past. It was a book filled with remedies for ailments both common and rare, each one written as though whispered into existence by some long-lost sage. The very act of speaking their names aloud had been forbidden, a superstition so deeply ingrained that it seemed to have shaped reality itself. You sat up slowly, the blanket pooling around your legs like a soft cloud. Your hands reached out tentatively towards the book on the table beside you. Its leather cover was cracked and worn, but somehow still held an aura of power. You traced your fingers over its surface before finally opening it to find where you had left off. Page after page, each filled with words that seemed to pulse with life, ingredients for concoctions so arcane they bordered on magic, rituals performed under the light of certain phases of the moon, and incantations spoken in tongues long since forgotten. It was all there, every detail meticulously recorded, as if by someone intent upon preserving these secrets for posterity. But it wasn't just knowledge that bound you to this book. It was a name, one forbidden from the third day on. A name so powerful, its utterance could summon both healing and destruction in equal measure. It had been whispered under your breath countless times during those days of feverish research, each repetition chipping away at the taboo until it seemed almost harmless. Yet as dawn broke fully over the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, you felt a growing sense of unease. The name itself began to echo in your mind, a whisper that had become an obsession, driving you through countless hours of study and experiment. You had spoken its name out loud once, on the second day, just as a test, only to be met with a silence so profound it seemed to resonate within. Now, as dawn approached, the third day loomed large in your mind. The book lay open before you, each page a reminder of what was at stake, the potential for change, perhaps even redemption, but also the danger that came with such power. You closed the tome carefully and placed it back where you had found it, a small gesture meant to ward off any further temptation. Outside, birds began their morning chorus, their songs mingling with the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. The world seemed normal once more, but inside your heart, a storm brewed, one that refused to be quelled by mere daylight or mundane activities. You rose from your cot and moved towards the window, drawn by an unseen force. Through the small panes, You could see the village stirring below, people going about their daily lives as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But beneath this facade of normalcy lay a truth that only those few who knew the secret understood. In the shadows, magic stirred, waiting to be unleashed or contained, depending on whose hands it fell into. With a deep breath, you stepped out into the cool morning air and began your journey down the winding path towards the village. Each step carried with it not just the weight of new knowledge, but also an underlying sense that today might mark a turning point, a moment when everything changed irrevocably. The name you dared to whisper now seemed both more dangerous and more necessary than ever, its very existence hanging on your every word. As dawn fully broke over the horizon, casting long shadows across the earth, you found yourself standing at the edge of the village, facing a future that promised both peril and possibility. The air around you felt charged with energy, charged with the promise of what lay ahead, waiting to be uncovered or sealed away forever. The weight of a heavy wooden door pressed against your hand, its rough texture sending small shivers through you as it creaked open into the dimly lit workshop. Inside, light from an oil lamp cast flickering shadows that danced across the cluttered floor, a reminder of the countless herbs and potions spread out here. The air around you felt charged with energy, charged with the promise of what lay ahead, waiting to be uncovered or sealed away forever. Your fingers traced a leaf-shaped tag hanging on a rack nearby, marked simply Verdant Vitality Elixir. You let your gaze drift over the shelves stacked high with bottles and jars, each containing an assortment of strange liquids and powders. The scent of dried herbs mingled with the musty odor of old parchment, creating an olfactory tapestry that was both comforting and a little overwhelming. You picked up one such bottle, its contents a murky green liquid tinged with hints of copper. The label read, Iron Fortifier. You unscrewed the cap and lifted it to your nose, inhaling deeply. A metallic tang danced on your tongue as if you could taste iron filings, mixed with earthy notes that made your nostrils twitch in interest. Your attention was drawn by a soft hiss coming from the corner of the room where an elderly woman sat stirring something in a large cauldron over a small fire. Her fingers moved methodically around a wooden spoon, each movement precise and deliberate, like she had been doing this for centuries. She glanced up at you with eyes that were sharp but kind. "Ah, you've returned," she said, her voice as weathered as the leather gloves she wore. "Have you brought me something to work on?" You nodded, handing over a small pouch filled with dried roots and leaves collected from your recent travels in the forest. Her gaze swept them up before nodding sagely. "An interesting assortment indeed," she murmured, her voice laced with a hint of curiosity. She placed the pouch carefully back onto one of the many shelves before turning back to her cauldron. The hiss grew louder as something inside began to simmer furiously. You watched for a moment longer, feeling the warmth of the fire seep into your bones and the gentle hum of the workshop settle around you like a blanket. Then, with a sigh that was more than just physical exhaustion, but also relief at being in this familiar space again, you let yourself be enveloped by the slow rhythm of work. The rhythmic hiss of the cauldron melded with the creaking of joints and occasional scrape of wood against stone as the woman moved around. The room hummed with a quiet energy that spoke to years spent here, in constant motion between creation and conservation. You felt your shoulders relax further into the wooden chair you had claimed for yourself over the years. What if we could cure more than just the body? You mused aloud, leaning back slightly as thoughts began to spiral out of control. What if these elixirs and potions hold not only physical, but also spiritual healing? The woman paused in her stirring, eyes narrowing in thought before she resumed with a smile that promised patience. "Ah, there it is," she said softly. "That spark of curiosity that drives us all." She pointed to the cauldron as if following your thoughts. What if these elixirs are not just concoctions meant to fortify or heal, but also serve as a mirror, showing us what we desire and fear in equal measure? You looked down at the bottle you had been holding earlier, its green liquid now seeming less like iron and more like an invitation. "So you think these potions can reveal something about ourselves?" You couldn't help adding wryly, "What if it's not just a matter of what cures us, but also what drives us to seek them out in the first place?" She nodded slowly, her gaze distant as she considered your words. "Perhaps that is where true magic lies, not in the potions themselves, but in their ability to transform perceptions." The fire crackled softly beside you, casting dancing shadows across the shelves and bottles. The air grew cooler with nightfall, yet neither of these physical sensations seemed significant compared to the swirling thoughts within. What if we could use these cures not just as remedies for ills, but also as tools to understand ourselves better? You asked, your voice growing softer even though you were speaking aloud. The woman chuckled softly, a sound that was both wise and gentle. "Ah, my dear apprentice, it is always the questions themselves that hold their own magic." She reached out a hand, her touch surprisingly warm despite the chill of evening settling in around them. You found yourself grasping hers tightly, feeling something akin to reassurance. "Let us see what these potions can show us tonight," she said with a smile that was both encouraging and a bit mischievous. "After all, it is not just about the remedy, but also the journey." With those words, you felt your mind begin to settle into the patterns of work, of routine mixed with wonder, and allowed yourself to be guided by her hand back towards the simmering cauldron. The hiss grew louder once more, as if eager for its turn in the conversation. You watched it carefully, feeling a sense of peace wash over you, a mix of curiosity and contentment that seemed almost tangible in this small workshop, bathed in flickering light. With a soft hum, the cauldron's surface rippled like water disturbed by an unseen breeze. The hiss turned into a bubbling melody that seemed almost in tune with your heartbeat. You paused for a moment, savoring this rare sense of tranquility amidst your usual bustling days. The day had started as any other, boring administrative tasks and endless paperwork at the royal court. But now, standing in this little workshop under the dim light, it felt like everything was about to change. The air around you thickened with a dense mist that seemed almost living, a reminder of the magic bound within these walls. You reached out again, fingers brushing against the cauldron's surface, as if feeling for invisible strings connecting all things in this world. The heat from your hand did not burn. Instead, it felt like an old friend, warm and comforting. Suddenly, a soft voice echoed through the air, barely more than a whisper, but clear enough to make you jump. "A wise choice," came the reply, though no visible lips moved. It was as if the very essence of the room had spoken directly into your mind. You blinked, trying to focus on something solid, any hint that might indicate where this voice originated from. But there was nothing. Just a cauldron filled with shimmering liquid and the faint smell of herbs and spices. You took another deep breath, allowing yourself a moment more to collect your thoughts before diving back into whatever task lay ahead. The day had been unusually quiet at court, perhaps because everyone knew you were absent. Normally, it was a whirlwind of meetings, arguments over policy changes, and endless paperwork. Now, sitting here in this cozy workshop, filled with the scent of old books and brewing potions, everything felt different. You picked up the small leather-bound book from your lap, its pages stained by years of handling. Unusual medieval cures that actually worked, it read on the cover, a title that had piqued your interest when you first stumbled upon this dusty tome in the castle's library months ago. The pages inside were filled with strange concoctions and remedies, some so bizarre they seemed more suited for myth than reality. You flipped through the book once again, each page offering a new puzzle to solve or a mystery to unravel. One entry caught your eye, a recipe that promised to heal wounds not just by closing them, but by actually restoring lost strength and vitality. It was an ancient remedy, one rarely used in modern times, but perhaps more relevant now than ever. A knock at the door interrupted your reverie. The sound seemed almost out of place in this quiet sanctuary, a reminder of the world waiting outside. You set down the book carefully, knowing you had to return to your duties soon. As you stood up, stretching your arms above your head, another whisper reached your ears. "Remember," it said, and then silence, no more echoes, no more whispers. Just the quiet hum of the cauldron once again. You walked through the door, feeling a strange weight lifted from your shoulders. The world outside seemed different now. The people you passed exchanged glances with a new kind of respect or curiosity that made your heart flutter in ways it hadn't before. As you stepped out into the courtyard bathed in afternoon sunlight, you realized something was indeed about to change. The decision had been made, whether consciously or not. It felt as if fate itself had taken notice and aligned everything just right for one more extraordinary day at court. With a smile that felt both real and imagined, you continued on your way, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with an open mind and heart now tuned to the whispers of magic. Back in the workshop, the cauldron continued its gentle bubbling, as if waiting for the next chapter to unfold. The gentle hum of the forge fills your ears, a low and constant buzz that seems to vibrate through every bone in your body. The weight of iron in your hands feels heavy but familiar, as if it has been there since time immemorial, waiting for you to shape its form. Sweat beads on your brow, tracing small paths down the side of your face, cool against the heat rising from the glowing coals. Your breaths are slow and deep, coming out in puffs that catch in the air around you like tiny white flowers. The smell is a mix of smoke from the forge, sweat mingled with the earthy scent of leather gloves, and something else, something more subtle, almost floral but not quite. Perhaps it's thyme, or maybe rosemary, its presence softening the harshness of the workday. You can feel your muscles starting to relax as you lean back slightly against the sturdy wooden table that holds tools too numerous to name. Back in the workshop, the cauldron continues its gentle bubbling, as if waiting for the next chapter to unfold. The air is thick with steam, and the faint, earthy aroma of herbs steeping gently within. You can feel a small sense of anticipation building. Perhaps today's discovery will be as simple yet profound as last week's. Your fingers move almost automatically now, dipping in and out of the pot, stirring the contents with deft motions honed by years of practice. The liquid inside is dark green, almost black, flecked here and there with tiny leaves that have been macerated until they dissolve into the mixture. You take a moment to inhale deeply. The smell is strong but not overwhelming, more like an old friend who greets you warmly after a long absence. You lift your hands from the cauldron, letting them rest on the edge of the table for just a second. The heat seeps through the leather gloves and into your skin, making tiny prickles dance across your palms. You can feel the warmth spread up your arms, a comforting sensation that dulls some of the day's weariness. Your eyes travel over the herbs laid out before you, thyme, rosemary, sage, all carefully arranged in small piles. What if this mixture worked? What if it truly had the power to heal what was once thought incurable? You reach for a piece of parchment and dip your quill into an inkwell. The nib scrapes against the page with a soft hiss as you begin to write, the letters curling gracefully down the line. You jot down notes on every herb's properties, its color, its scent, how it interacts with others when combined in this mixture. It is meticulous work, but your mind races ahead, pondering what might happen if all of these plants truly worked together. The weight of responsibility settles upon you, not just for the sake of documenting what has been discovered, but also because each plant holds a potential to change lives forever. What if this discovery was not only useful in its own right, but could inspire others? Could it be that simple? You pause again, running your fingers over one leaf, a sprig of thyme with tiny silver veins visible even here under the dim light. The texture is rough, yet somehow soothing. You can almost feel the plant's essence clinging to your skin like a gentle embrace. As you continue writing, the world around you fades slightly into the background. The constant chatter of the forge grows softer and more distant, replaced by thoughts that swirl within your mind. What if this mixture worked? What if it truly had the power to heal what was once thought incurable? A small smile tugs at the corners of your mouth as you consider these possibilities. Here in the dim light, surrounded by tools and ingredients, there is a sense of magic, a feeling that anything can happen when one places enough care into their work. The hours pass without much notice. Time becomes abstract here, lost within the routine tasks and contemplations. You dip your quill back into the inkwell, the surface cold against your fingers as you pull it free again to continue writing. Every line you draw on the parchment seems imbued with purpose, each word carefully chosen so that future eyes might understand exactly what was accomplished today. The day's work is nearly done. Soon all will be packed away and stored safely in a leather-bound book, waiting for someone else to pick up where you left off tomorrow. As evening draws near, the light outside begins to wane significantly, casting long shadows across the room. You feel the shift from morning weariness into an afternoon ease, a quiet contentment that comes only after hours of focused effort. The air cools slightly as dusk settles in, and with it, a sense of finality. You lay down your quill and set aside the last notes you've written for today's work. It feels good to rest now. The muscles in your arms and hands ache pleasantly from their exertion over the past several hours. You stretch slowly, feeling every muscle relax as tension eases out with each movement. The cauldron continues its slow bubbling just before you, a steady presence that serves as both reminder of today's successes and anticipation for tomorrow's potential discoveries. The mixture inside has settled now, taking on a richer hue almost like polished obsidian. Perhaps it truly does hold the key to unlocking cures thought impossible. You turn away from the cauldron with a contented sigh, allowing your eyes to adjust fully to the dimmer light of dusk. The shadows grow longer here in the workshop, stretching out and weaving intricate patterns along the walls. They dance softly over everything left behind, tools, parchment, ingredients, all bathed now in the soft glow of late afternoon. The sense of accomplishment is strong but tempered by a quiet curiosity about what might lie ahead. What if this mixture worked? What if it truly had the power to heal where others thought only darkness remained? You step out into the cool evening air, feeling its gentle chill against your skin. The world outside seems quieter now, nature settling down for rest after another long day of activity and growth. Stars begin their slow ascent in the sky, tiny points of light twinkling softly overhead. As you walk towards home, the weight of today's work feels lighter somehow, a testament to progress made and mysteries uncovered, even as more remain waiting patiently beyond the horizon. The weight of your feet seems to lift as you step onto familiar cobblestone paths that wind through the bustling town square. The vibrant chatter and laughter from a group of children playing in the afternoon sun remind you how much simpler life can seem when its challenges are not so heavy. As you approach the herb garden at the edge of the market, your steps slow to a gentle stroll. The air is filled with fragrances that carry stories of distant lands, spicy cinnamon, sweet lavender, and the earthy musk of fresh mint. You reach out tentatively for a sprig of rosemary, its leaves hardening into an almost leather-like texture as you grasp them tightly. In your mind's eye, the image of a manuscript page flickers to life, a parchment filled with Latin words that seem both ancient and mysterious. Your fingers move through the garden with practiced ease, plucking herbs at random from their beds. Thyme, parsley, yarrow, each one a potential key in an ever-evolving puzzle. You pause momentarily by the chamomile bushes, where tiny white blossoms sway gently under the breeze. A single petal drifts down to rest on your cheek, and you feel a small smile tugging at your lips. You recall the tales of how this simple herb had revolutionized healing in ways that even then seemed unimaginable. In medieval Europe, chamomile was not merely used for its calming scent or as an ingredient in perfumes and teas. It held a more profound role in medicine. Its properties were harnessed to treat everything from digestive issues to anxiety disorders. You remember the story of how this herb came into your own hands, a letter from a distant uncle living on the outskirts of the empire, who spoke of his experiences with chamomile tea as an effective remedy for insomnia. His words resonated deeply within you, especially during those nights when rest proved elusive and the weight of unspoken worries clung to each breath. As night falls softly over the town square, casting long shadows under its ancient arches, your thoughts return to the herb garden and the countless hours spent studying these plants. Each leaf held a secret. Every stem carried whispers of forgotten wisdom that could still be applied today. You imagine yourself as part of a lineage of healers who have seen through centuries, learning from nature's own prescriptions. In the dim light, you find a small patch of chamomile thriving despite the late hour. Its flowers glisten with dew, mirroring the stars beginning their ascent in the sky above. With gentle care, you pluck several blooms and tuck them into your cloak pocket, promising yourself that tomorrow will bring an opportunity to explore this herb's full potential. Your steps guide you back towards home, where a warm fire crackles softly in the hearth, a comforting beacon after days of wandering through fields and forests. As you settle down with a steaming cup of chamomile tea, you reflect on how something as simple as a small sprig can spark a revolution, one sip at a time. In this moment, surrounded by warmth and light, you feel an unshakable belief in the power of these plants to heal not just the body, but also the soul. The mysteries that remain, those waiting patiently beyond your current understanding, are no longer daunting. Instead, they are seen as challenges ripe for discovery. With each sip of chamomile tea, with every breath of its calming essence, you feel a renewed sense of purpose and direction. The hours pass slowly, but by the time dawn breaks once more, you carry not only the memories of your night's journey, but also an updated resolve to uncover the full potential hidden within these simple yet potent herbs. The world outside may remain unchanged in many ways, but for now, it feels as if a new chapter has begun, a story where even the smallest seed can grow into something extraordinary. As you step out into the morning light, ready to face whatever challenges come your way, you take one last glance back at the garden, knowing that each herb holds more than just its own secrets. They are gateways to stories yet untold, and mysteries waiting to be unraveled in the pursuit of healing both body and spirit. The soft, familiar creak of the wooden door closing behind you wafts through your nostrils as a gentle wave of warmth washes over you. The air inside is thick with the scent of spiced ale and roasting meat, a comforting aroma that seeps into your skin, making it feel like the world has just paused for a moment to allow you in. You step into the dimly lit kitchen, where the fire crackles softly, casting shadows across the stone walls. The warmth from the hearth is almost tangible, wrapping around your shoulders as if reaching out with gentle fingers. A heavy wooden chair creaks beneath your weight as you sit down at a rough table, feeling its solid form under your hands. The kitchen smells of cooking herbs and garlic, mingling with the scent of damp wood and the faint hint of sweat from the day's labor. The sound of sizzling meat fills the air, punctuated by the occasional splash of oil hitting hot pans. You pick up a nearby wooden spoon, its rough surface warming your palm as you stir a bubbling stew. Its simple fare, beans, pork, and carrots, prepared to nourish both body and spirit. As you sit there stirring, the rhythmic sound of the fire crackles around you like a heartbeat. The scent of roasting meat is heavy in the air, evoking memories of long winter nights, spent gathered with kin sharing stories by candlelight. You lean back slightly against the chair's hard wooden frame, feeling its weight settle into your body as if it too understands the need for rest. The warmth from the fire seems to seep deeper through you, like a soft embrace that wraps around your weary limbs. The air is thick, with the faint aroma of herbs simmering in the stew, mingling with the scent of burning wood and the subtle hint of ale brewing nearby. It's as if every breath you take fills not just your lungs, but also your soul. The kitchen feels like a cocoon, safe and warm, with the fire creating a barrier between here and whatever lies outside. Outside is cold and dark. Inside, it's cozy and filled with the sounds of cooking and the occasional clatter of pots being rinsed under running water from a nearby wooden bucket. The sound of the stream that runs just beyond the kitchen window mingles with these domestic noises in a way that's both soothing and familiar. As you sit there stirring, your mind begins to drift, flying away on the wings of memory as if caught by an invisible breeze. You think back to simpler times when healing was often sought not through grand remedies, but simple meals shared around tables like this one. You remember tales from your grandmother's lips about how food could be a medicine, offering comfort and strength in ways that many might dismiss today. The stew continues to bubble gently as you ponder the idea of using foods in healing. It seems almost too obvious now to use what is available on hand for both sustenance and care. But back then, it was more than just nourishment. Each ingredient held a story about survival and adaptation. What if there were other stories untold, hidden within these humble dishes? The sound of the fire crackles in your ears like distant thunder, bringing you back to the present moment. The warmth from the stew seeps into your fingers as they continue their slow, steady motion through the liquid. It's a meditative act almost, like threading time itself with each stir. Outside, the world may be harsh and unforgiving, but here in this kitchen, it feels as if you've found a sanctuary of sorts, a place where stories are born and nurtured over hot coals and bubbling pots. The fire continues to burn steadily, casting shadows that dance across your face, reminding you gently that even the smallest acts can have great meaning. As night deepens outside and stars begin to twinkle through the windows, you feel a sense of peace wash over you. Here in this kitchen, far from the chaos of the world beyond, stories are woven into the very fabric of the air, a tapestry of healing and hope. In this quiet kitchen, amidst the gentle lullaby of distant crickets and soft rustling of leaves outside, you find yourself drawn to a small book resting on the table beside your porridge bowl. Its leather cover is worn from years of use, with only faint traces of its original color, a once golden hue now faded by time and exposure. The title is barely legible, but it catches your eye: Medicinal Remedies for Uncommon Ailments. As you reach out to pick up the book, a fragment of memory stirs within you, a vivid recollection from years ago when you were still a child, playing in this very kitchen with your siblings. The pages of that book would crackle and whisper secrets as your mother flipped through them, her eyes scanning for remedies for what she called the strange illnesses. Now, as the warmth of the fire dances across the room, those memories flood back, and you are drawn into a world where unusual cures could save lives before an enemy's blade. Your fingers turn the brittle pages, each one revealing insights that seem both ancient and familiar. One entry catches your eye, a recipe for bloodroot poultice, written in ink so faded it looks like smoke from the fireplace. The directions are straightforward but chilling. To gather the root of bloodroot at dawn when the dew is still present on the leaves, then grind them into a paste with honey and apply liberally over any open wounds. Curiosity piqued, you decide to test this remedy for yourself. With careful hands, you locate some fresh bloodroot growing wild near the riverbank outside, a task made easier by your knowledge of local flora gained from years of wandering. The morning is crisp and cool, dew still clinging to each leaf, a perfect time for gathering. The process is surprisingly simple, yet strangely unsettling. You break off pieces of the root, its texture reminiscent of licorice, and place them in a small bowl. Then you add honey, which seems to dissolve into the earthy substance with an almost unnatural ease, forming a thick paste that glistens under the morning light. As you prepare to apply it, your mind races back through history, weaving together threads from this book and tales of old healers who once practiced here in this very kitchen. You remember how stories were passed down not just through words, but also through actions, how remedies like these needed not only ingredients, but also faith and belief. With a deep breath to steady yourself, you carefully clean an imaginary wound on your forearm, a small cut from earlier that day, before applying the paste. The sensation is oddly soothing, almost as if the root has absorbed some of its ancient knowledge into this moment. As it dries, forming a protective layer over the skin, you feel an unexpected connection to those who came before, those who had faced their own battles with tools like these. The book continues to speak volumes about other remedies: dragon's blood for poison, bone marrow tea for broken bones, and firefly elixirs, concoctions that glowed in the dark, used both as a means of signaling distress or guidance. Each entry feels more than just text. It becomes a living history, each page holding secrets to survival. As you close the book and tuck it away, a sense of reverence washes over you. These remedies are not merely historical curiosities, but practical tools that could have saved countless lives in their time. And perhaps now they can serve another purpose, guiding your own journey through this world filled with both enemies and unforeseen challenges. Outside, the stars continue to twinkle, casting a silver glow across the landscape. In the warmth of the kitchen, you feel a renewed sense of purpose. These old remedies might be unconventional in today's world, but their spirit of resilience, community, and unwavering hope is timeless. As night deepens further into its embrace, you realize that sometimes it is not just what we know or believe that matters most, but how we choose to act upon those truths when faced with darkness. As dawn crept in with its cool fingers, casting a silver light over the encampment, you stepped out into the crisp morning air. The scent of wood smoke lingered from last night's fires as soldiers and healers alike began their daily routines. Today was different. Whispers had spread through the camp about an enigmatic food that could be more deadly than any sword or arrow. You wandered towards the healer's tent, a place where knowledge mingled with experience in ways both ancient and profound. Inside, you found a small gathering of healers discussing a parchment marked with strange symbols, signatures from a long-dead scribe who had once roamed these lands. Lady Elysia, one of them, greeted you warmly as she noticed your approach. "What brings you here today?" You hesitated before speaking. The urgency in the air was palpable. Something about this food was not just ordinary, but potentially catastrophic. You decided to share what little knowledge you had gathered from your own research. "I've been studying old texts," you began slowly, carefully choosing each word, "and I believe there's a real danger here that we need to address before it becomes too late." The healer nodded gravely and invited you closer as others started to gather. You explained the findings of a manuscript detailing an unusual food found in regions where diseases were rampant but rarely spread beyond those borders. The text speaks of how this food, when consumed by healthy individuals, could bring on symptoms similar to those caused by the plague. You continued, your voice steady despite the mounting tension around you. It's not just about being infected, it's about triggering a response that mimics severe illness. As you delved deeper into the narrative, you recounted stories of how this food had been used as both a cure and a trap throughout history. It was said to be rich in certain compounds that could disrupt one's natural defenses, making them more susceptible to various illnesses. One healer spoke up, his voice firm yet cautious. "Lady Elysia, we need to tread carefully here. If this food is indeed so dangerous, it would explain why the enemy has been spreading illness rather than open conflict." Another added, "We should test samples from those who have already fallen ill and compare them with our own stores of provisions. We must ensure that no one, especially not ourselves, is at risk before taking any action." As you watched the group deliberate, a sense of responsibility settled over you like a shroud. These people relied on your expertise, but they also trusted their instincts and experience in these matters. You remembered the words from last night's narration. Sometimes it is not just what we know or believe that matters most, but how we choose to act upon those truths when faced with darkness. With renewed determination, you suggested a plan. First, secure samples of all available food, supplies within the camp and neighboring regions. Second, establish a team dedicated solely to analyzing these substances for any signs of contamination or unusual properties. You mentioned this was found in areas where diseases were rampant but didn't spread beyond those borders. One healer mused aloud. Perhaps there's something else at play here, a natural barrier that protects the region from widespread infection. You nodded, appreciating their insight. Perhaps understanding these protections could help prevent future outbreaks or even discover new treatments. As morning turned to afternoon, you saw the first steps of your plan begin to unfold. Men and women were gathered around tables filled with samples, each carefully labeled as they worked tirelessly under the watchful eyes of the healers. In the midst of all this activity, a sense of unity emerged among those present. The spirit of resilience, of community and unwavering hope that you had spoken about last night seemed to permeate every conversation. It was not just knowledge or belief that mattered, it was how they chose to act upon these truths. By evening's fall, the camp buzzed with activity as results began trickling in. Some samples showed no unusual properties, while others hinted at subtle changes that could be significant if left unchecked. As you stepped out into twilight once more, the air heavy with anticipation and fear, something shifted within you. No longer was this merely a scholarly pursuit or an academic exercise. It had become personal, a quest to protect those who depended on your guidance amidst uncertainty. The food that could kill you before the enemy did. This realization brought both dread and resolve. In the face of such adversity, you knew one thing for certain. Sometimes darkness required light, not just to see, but also to act with courage and clarity. The warmth of the hearth fire seeped through your fingers, a gentle caress that soothed even as it heated. The flames danced in rhythmic flickers, casting long shadows on the walls around you. You leaned into its embrace, feeling more at peace than you had since dawn. Your cloak was heavy and comforting against your shoulders, like an old friend wrapping itself around you. You sat by the fire's edge, the crackle of wood almost lulling you to sleep. The air was filled with a sweet scent, a mix of roasting meat and herbs that seemed to linger just under the surface, barely perceptible, yet not entirely gone. It reminded you of home, though your home had long been a distant memory. Outside, the night was quiet, save for the occasional hoot from an owl or the far-off snore of some beast seeking shelter in these woods. The silence was almost palpable, as if every sound held within it the secrets of the forest and its denizens. Yet here by this fire you felt safe. You closed your eyes briefly, letting the warmth wash over you. The weight of a leather-bound book rested gently on your lap, its pages thick with history and lore. It had been passed down through generations, each mark in ink telling stories of yore. Today it held answers to questions that still haunted even the most learned of scholars, questions about why those who seemed so lowly could possess knowledge that eluded the nobles themselves. You opened the book slowly, feeling its leather cover creak with age and use. The pages were yellowed but not too fragile, a testament perhaps to their care over centuries. As you flipped through them, your fingers traced the lines of text, each word a puzzle piece in an ancient riddle. What if it was true? What if those farmers who had lived so close to the earth held more than just survival skills? More than they let on. The pages spoke of remedies and cures that seemed almost too simple for something as complex as human health. Peasants' knowledge, they called it, knowledge that should have been passed down in royal circles, but somehow was not. You read about a humble man named Eustace from the village just beyond these woods. He claimed to have healed with nothing more than common herbs and hot water. The nobles scoffed at him then, much as you did now. But what if Eustace had been right? What if his methods worked not because of some grand mystical force, but simply due to their effectiveness? The book spoke of fevers too high for even the most skilled physicians to bring down with their expensive concoctions and exotic ingredients. Peasant remedies, so simple by comparison, could cool a body faster than any cooling salve or powder. The cures were often just as effective, easier on both purse strings and patients' bodies. You felt a small pang of guilt at the realization that you had not given these methods their due consideration before now. You flipped to another page, this one detailing a remedy for wounds so severe they might have been fatal in less skilled hands. A simple poultice of crushed garlic leaves, honey, and vinegar, nothing more than ingredients found almost anywhere. The fire shifted slightly, casting your shadow along the wall behind you. Shadows like these whispered secrets, hiding in plain sight while you looked elsewhere for answers. You leaned back into its glow, letting it warm you from head to toe. The book's pages turned easily under your touch. They held more than just words now, they contained a world of possibilities. What if the common folk knew something that had been lost over generations? What if their practices were superior because they focused on simplicity and what was truly effective rather than flashy, expensive treatments. You pinched the bridge of your nose briefly. The weight of this knowledge felt both heavy and light, like carrying a burden while also being freed from ignorance. It made you wonder about those who had dismissed these remedies as mere superstition or witchcraft. What if they were missing out on something real, something tangible that could have saved lives? The fire's warmth seemed to grow stronger around you, inviting you deeper into its comforting embrace. The book in your hands felt heavier with each page turned, like holding a weight of knowledge yet to be fully understood. You sat there by the fire, lost in thought as the hours slipped away. Outside, the night remained silent and still, a testament to the quiet that can exist even amidst chaos. Here within this warm circle of light, you found peace, and perhaps, just maybe, some small hope for understanding those who had been overlooked all these years. The weight of the book rested more heavily now, not with doubts, but rather a resolve to seek out truth wherever it might be hiding, in the commonplaces and ordinary lives that often went unnoticed. In the face of such adversity, you knew one thing for certain: sometimes darkness required light, not just to see, but also to act with courage and clarity. The fire's crackle broke through your thoughts momentarily, a soft reminder of its presence, a soothing hum against the silence outside. You closed the book gently, setting it aside as you leaned back further into the warmth. The shadows danced around you like old friends, whispering secrets only they could understand. And in that moment, with the hearth fire's gentle embrace and the weighty tome at your side, you felt more alive than ever before. The night remained still outside, save for the occasional sound of a twig snapping underfoot or an animal stirring deep within the forest's heart. The air was cool yet not cold, just right to hold onto as it brought with it the promise of morning's light and fresh possibilities. You breathed in deeply, feeling every fiber of your being relax. With that last breath, you began to feel the edges of sleep nudge at the corners of your consciousness. Your muscles loosened further still, sinking into the cushions of exhaustion. The fire crackled warmly around you, its glow a steady beacon even as it softened and dimmed with each passing moment. You closed your eyes fully now, letting the weight of the day slide away like water from stone. The book's pages slipped neatly back to their resting place on the hearthstone beside you, a silent sentinel waiting for another chance at light when dawn finally broke. Your thoughts drifted gently into dreams, filled with visions of a world where every person's knowledge was valued equally, where darkness truly did require nothing more than an open mind and a willingness to listen. And in this peaceful embrace of warmth and stillness, you found not just rest, but also the beginnings of hope for tomorrow, a new dawn breaking over old beliefs. In the quiet hush of dawn, the village gathered around the old oak tree, its leaves whispering tales of ancient wisdom. The air was thick with anticipation as the first rays of sunlight danced upon the ground, casting long shadows that stretched and wavered like living creatures. Among them stood the young scribe, his quill poised over a parchment in eager readiness. The healer from the neighboring village had shared her knowledge last night, recounting stories where even humble peasants had discovered remedies for ailments thought incurable by the nobility's finest physicians. The tales were not just of cures, but also of how these ordinary folk had approached health with an openness and creativity that often went unacknowledged. "Listen closely," she had said solemnly as the crowd hushed, "for I have witnessed the power of a mind unfettered by tradition." She spoke of a peasant woman who, in her desperate search for help, after losing 2 children to what doctors called the plague, found that using local herbs and roots combined with herbal baths yielded results no physician could achieve. The village elder scoffed at first, dismissing it as foolish superstition, but eventually, seeing the stark difference between those treated by both methods, he too began to listen. The scribe's heart swelled with pride for her people, their resilience shining through in every shared story and whispered secret. As she wrote down each detail meticulously, a sense of purpose filled her. This was not merely history, but evidence of strength that deserved recognition. But as the morning wore on, the air grew tense. Some among them were skeptical, others fearful. The royal physicians, ever wary of challenges to their authority, had begun circulating rumors in court, whispering darkly about how peasants' cures could lead to heresy and chaos if allowed unchecked proliferation. Yet here they stood, unshaken by such threats, united in their quest for knowledge that transcended mere survival. A young girl named Ilara, who had lost both parents to the very diseases these doctors claimed to cure, but failed so spectacularly at preventing, stepped forward. Her voice was steady despite her youth, as she recounted how simple remedies from local herbs and a mother's love had kept her alive when all hope seemed lost. "Why fear what works?" she asked the crowd, her eyes meeting those of the physician who had treated her with scorn mere months ago. "Why should we not seek every avenue to heal ourselves?" The scribe listened intently as Ilara described how warmth from a simple tea made from rosemary and thyme had brought relief where nothing else could. How she had learned that sometimes it was enough simply to listen without judgment to the whispers of nature. As her tale concluded, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Not everyone agreed immediately, but there were nods of understanding, glances exchanged between neighbors who recognized in these stories pieces of their own lives and struggles. The healer's words echoed softly around them. "We must remember that every cure begins with a question. What if we open our minds to all sources of knowledge, peasant or physician? We may find not just answers, but new ways of seeing the world." By midday, as they dispersed under the broad expanse of sky, there was a newfound light in their eyes, a spark ignited by hope and the promise of healing that reached beyond boundaries drawn on parchment. For now, amidst this quiet revolution of minds, every person felt valued. Here, darkness no longer required fear. It only needed an open heart and ears ready to hear. And as they went about their day, each step carried with it a silent acknowledgement. Tomorrow held the potential for something greater than any of them had dared imagine. And so began the journey, a slow, hesitant but hopeful path towards recognizing that sometimes, in this world filled with shadows, true light lay not just within noble halls or holy texts, but in the quiet whispers of those who had long been ignored. The first thing you notice is not a name or date, but a soft hum of a fire crackling in the hearth nearby. The warmth seeps into your skin, comforting and familiar, like wrapping yourself in a thick blanket on a cold night. You sit by the fireplace, feeling the weighty silence settle around you, heavy as the shadows that creep along the walls. The air is filled with a gentle hiss of coals, mingled with the faint scent of roasting chestnuts nearby. The smell brings back memories of autumn evenings and stories shared in cozy nooks. Perhaps it's the same warmth that enveloped those long-ago scribes as they pennied their accounts of medieval times. You reach for a small mug, its wood feeling cool to your touch despite being warm from the fire. You sip slowly, letting the liquid slide down your throat with the gentle sound of bubbles dancing on water. The taste is familiar too, spiced wine, sweet and warming, just as it was meant to be when consumed by those who needed their spirits lifted. Outside, the world outside seems still in its own slumber, cradled under a blanket of darkness so thick you can almost touch it. But inside this hearthlit room, everything feels alive, every candle flicker casting shadows that dance and play on the walls like small sprites skipping through the night air. The fire is your anchor, steady as the stone beneath your feet. You place down the mug carefully, its weight easing off your hand into a softer surface, a cushioned chair perhaps, or simply the floor where warmth has seeped up from beneath. You sink lower and deeper, letting yourself drift in this moment of stillness. What if history had been wrong about so much? What if those old remedies worked not just because they were holy water or blessed herbs, but because someone, somewhere, knew how to combine ingredients that would actually make a difference in people's lives? The first page you open is yellowed and brittle, its words barely legible. But the story it tells is clear as day, of a simple remedy for a common ail, a poultice made from mashed garlic, rue leaves, and honey. The text describes how this combination could be used to treat minor burns or cuts with unexpected efficacy. What if that wasn't just an old wives' tale? What if the real secret was in understanding which combinations truly mattered? The candlelight casts long shadows on the page as you read through more of these entries, accounts from peasants and townsfolk, not noblemen. They speak of daily struggles and small victories, written with a straightforward honesty that makes them feel like they could be your own ancestors. And so began the journey, a slow, hesitant but hopeful path towards recognizing that sometimes, in this world filled with shadows, true light lay not just within noble halls or holy texts, but in the quiet whispers of those who had long been ignored. These were the people who found ways to heal themselves and each other, ways that might have even worked. The fire crackles once more, drawing your attention back to its steady rhythm. You turn a page, noting how the ink has faded slightly over time, revealing small cracks in the paper beneath it, a testament, perhaps, to the very hands of those who wrote these words so long ago. What if history had underestimated the ingenuity and resilience of common folk? What if their remedies were not just superstitions, but something more, something that worked because they understood what mattered? You find yourself reading about a remedy for headaches involving crushed fennel seeds mixed with vinegar. The text explains how this combination could relieve pain swiftly, a simple yet effective solution that might have been overlooked in the grand halls of power. What if it wasn't just about the ingredients, but their proper application? What if they knew something more profound, something that transcended mere knowledge and became a part of daily practice? The firelight casts dancing shadows on your face, making you blink slightly. You look around the room, taking in its simplicity, the wooden beams still standing strong after so many years, the tapestries hanging loosely from the walls, their images almost faded, but not quite gone. What if history had missed a crucial detail, a small nuance that could change everything? What if those remedies were more than just recipes? What if they held secrets to healing and health that have yet to be fully understood? The candlelight flickers again, drawing your attention back to the page in front of you. You read about another remedy for fevers, involving a concoction made from crushed willow bark steeped in water. The text describes how this mixture could reduce inflammation and ease discomfort with surprising effectiveness. What if that wasn't just coincidence, but an insight into understanding plant biology? What if they had stumbled upon something fundamental to medicine centuries before their time? The fire crackles louder now, its sound a steady heartbeat against the quiet of the night. You find yourself pausing more often as you read, each sentence carrying with it the weight of possibility. What if history lied about these remedies being mere superstitions? What if they were not just folk wisdom, but something deeper, a body of knowledge that had been lost or overlooked? The candlelight begins to grow dim, its glow casting everything in a soft golden hue. You find yourself leaning forward slightly, drawn into the words on the page as if by an invisible force. What if those remedies worked because they were based not just on trial and error, but on deep observation of nature? What if common people had honed their skills over generations, learning what combinations would actually make a difference? The fire crackles one last time before settling into a more gentle hiss. You turn the page, finding another entry, a description of a remedy for coughs involving crushed horseradish and honey. The text explains how this combination could soothe sore throats and loosen congestion with remarkable speed. What if that wasn't just an old wives' tale, but something truly effective? What if they had understood which ingredients would work together to create real relief? The candlelight grows even softer, its warmth becoming a comforting presence as you sit there. You find yourself closing your eyes for a moment, letting the sound of the fire and the scent of roasting chestnuts wash over you. What if history had missed something crucial, something that could change our understanding of medicine forever? What if those remedies were not just superstitions, but held real power? You open your eyes again to find yourself almost asleep. The page in front of you is now a blur, its words faded into the darkness. But the memory lingers, the feeling that there might be more to these old remedies than anyone had imagined. The fire crackles softly one last time before finally settling into silence. You lay down on your pillow, feeling the warmth seep through it and wrap around you like an embrace. The world outside is still in its slumber, safe, secure, and silent. And as you drift off to sleep, the memories of what might have been linger gently in your mind, a small whisper of hope that perhaps, just maybe, history had overlooked something truly valuable. In the quietude that followed those fleeting thoughts, the bed creaked softly as you turned onto your side, facing a wall adorned with ancient tapestries depicting scenes from bygone eras. The fire in the hearth flickered gently, casting dancing shadows on the walls and creating an atmosphere of coziness and tranquility. Outside, the night sky was studded with stars, each one a whisper of light against the velvety blackness. Your thoughts drifted back to the documents you had unearthed, fragments of parchment covered in intricate scripts that seemed as if they were speaking directly from another age. They spoke not only of potions and herbs, but also of practices and stories often overlooked by historians and scholars. You had found records detailing remedies for ailments that modern medicine now considers incurable or at best, manageable with significant effort. One such remedy involved a mixture composed of wolf's milk and the crushed leaves of elderberry. The text explained how this concoction was believed to cure fevers that lingered despite other treatments. But what fascinated you most were not just these recipes, but also the stories behind them. One account told of a leper who, after being deemed incurable by many, stumbled upon an old woman in the forest. She whispered the recipe into his ear, and with every sip of the elixir, he felt a warmth spreading through him that had long been absent. Another record described how during a particularly harsh winter, when there was no food or firewood to be found, the villagers turned to a method they called the candle cure. This involved lighting candles made from tallow and letting them burn until they melted completely. The smoke from these candles was then directed over those suffering from respiratory issues, providing both warmth and the subtle suggestion of hope that their condition might improve with this unconventional approach. These tales were not merely academic curiosities, they held a profound resonance for you. As someone who had seen firsthand how modern medicine's limitations could be overwhelming, especially in places where resources are scarce, the idea that simple remedies once existed, waiting to be rediscovered and adapted, was both humbling and empowering. Each page turned seemed like uncovering not just pieces of history, but potential solutions for the future. As you lay there, lost in thought, a small smile played on your lips. The light from the fire cast a gentle glow across the pages before you, making them seem almost alive with knowledge that had been dormant until now. You picked up one particular document, the one about leprosy, and ran your fingers over the faded ink. It was as if each word whispered secrets of resilience and determination. You realized then how intertwined these ancient remedies were not just with survival, but also with hope itself, a belief in something beyond the immediate, an understanding that sometimes the most extraordinary cures lie hidden within the simplest of truths. As you closed your eyes once more, a sense of purpose began to form within you. There was work yet to be done. The world outside continued its peaceful slumber, unaware and unbothered by the thoughts swirling in your mind. You felt a determination growing, a resolve to bring these forgotten cures back into light, not just for academic or historical interest, but because there might still be lives that could benefit from them today. You felt a gentle warmth seep into your skin, carried on the air that smelled faintly of pine and damp earth. It was late in the evening, just as dusk painted the sky with soft grays and purples, preparing to surrender to night's velvet cloak. The fire crackled softly by your side, its heat dancing over you like a warm embrace. You leaned into it, feeling the weight of your satchel rest against your leg, its contents light but significant, pages filled with notes on medieval cures and remedies. You had spent most of the day poring over ancient texts in the dimly lit library, each page turning slowly as you searched for any overlooked details. Now that the sun was well past its zenith and the room felt cooler around the edges, you decided to take a moment outside before settling down for the night. The air carried with it an earthy scent of herbs drying by the windowsill, their leaves fluttering softly in the breeze. You stretched your arms above your head, feeling a gentle strain in your muscles after hours bent over books and parchment. Taking one last glance at the pages you had marked earlier, you stood up to gather them into a pile before carefully placing each back on its respective shelf. The wooden floor creaked beneath your feet as you moved, echoing softly through the quiet space. Outside, the night air was crisp, but not cold, carrying with it a freshness that seemed almost medicinal after days spent indoors among musty books and papers. You wrapped your cloak tighter around yourself, grateful for its warmth as you stepped out into the courtyard. The stars were beginning to twinkle overhead, their light casting an ethereal glow across the stone paths. You walked slowly down the cobblestones, each step a soft thud against the hard surface. The sounds of the day seemed far away now, footsteps and laughter blending together in a distant hum. Here, under the starlight, it was just you and the night. You paused for a moment by one of the larger trees, its thick branches reaching up to touch the sky like bony fingers. You sat down on an old wooden bench that had seen better days but remained sturdy enough. The wood creaked beneath your weight as you sank into the cushions with a sigh. Your satchel lay beside you now, heavy and familiar. You opened it gently, letting out a breath of air as if to wake its contents from their slumber. Inside were notes on various medicinal plants that had been thought lost or forgotten over centuries. You ran your fingers over some of the pages, feeling the texture of parchment against skin. The ink was dark, but smudged in places where you'd taken notes and cross-referenced information with older texts. There were sketches too, simple drawings of leaves and roots, their shapes familiar yet somehow alien as they lay there on paper. You thought about what these remedies might have meant to people centuries ago. How they had relied so heavily on plants that we now take for granted or consider only in the context of modern medicine. It was humbling, this realization that knowledge could be lost and then rediscovered with time. And here you were, holding onto fragments of that past, eager to see where they might lead. The fire from earlier still burned faintly inside your memory, its warmth a comfort even as it faded into the background noise of your thoughts. You felt the weight of responsibility settle on your shoulders, responsible for bringing light back to these cures, not just for scholarly pursuits, but potentially for real people in need today. What if there was something here that could help? That thought tugged at you softly, a nudge toward action. You closed your eyes and took a deep breath, letting the night air fill your lungs. It smelled of earth and freedom, offering a stark contrast to the stuffy confines of the library. You leaned back further into the bench, feeling its coolness against your skin as it cradled you gently. The world outside seemed to slow down around you, every sound muffled by distance or nightfall. In this moment, under starlight and stone, you found a quiet peace. It was easy here, in the stillness of night, to lose yourself in thought without distraction. The weight of your satchel felt lighter now, as if it too understood that rest was necessary before further work could begin. You let out another soft sigh, feeling your body relax into the bench, ready for whatever lay ahead. The fire crackled softly once more, its rhythm a lullaby against the growing quiet. You listened to the distant chirping of crickets and the occasional creaking of branches in the wind. The night was alive with sounds that seemed both familiar and foreign, evidence of life beyond your small circle of light. You reached down into the satchel again, pulling out a particularly interesting page marked heavily with notes. Its text was almost illegible now, but you knew what it said: aloe vera for burns, elderberry for colds. You ran your fingers over the ink-stained letters, each one resonating within you as if to remind you of its importance. As you held this piece of paper close, you realized how much more there was still to uncover. The journey ahead promised not only knowledge, but also a chance to make a difference. With renewed determination, you placed the note back in your satchel and closed it with care. It was time to return inside, where the warmth awaited. You stood up slowly, feeling every muscle wake from its temporary slumber. The fire crackled loudly as you approached, drawing you forward like an inviting beacon. You walked toward it, each step a deliberate movement back into the world of light and warmth after your brief sojourn in the cool embrace of night. As you sat down once more by the hearth, the flames danced playfully around you, casting flickering shadows on the walls. The weight of the satchel seemed less burdensome now, its contents a reminder rather than a distraction. You opened it again and began to read through your notes, lost in thought as the fire's gentle glow bathed everything in a soft light. The night outside continued quietly around you, crickets chirping softly, leaves rustling gently in the breeze. It was here, amidst these small sounds of nature, that you found solace and purpose. The journey ahead beckoned with its promise of discovery and potentially even healing for those in need today. In your dreams, you found yourself in a forgotten village nestled between craggy mountains and whispering woods. The air was thick with the scent of pine needles and damp earth, interspersed with the distant aroma of freshly baked bread from a small bakery near the center of town. As dawn began to break, silhouettes of villagers moved about their morning chores, unaware that you were an intruder in this quiet world. You wandered through cobblestone streets, observing the quaint houses adorned with ivy and wildflowers growing around them. Each door seemed to tell a story, but no one was home yet. The sun's golden rays painted everything in hues of orange and pink as they peeked over the horizon. A young girl, her face flushed from playing ball by lamplight until morning hours, approached you with curiosity. "Are you new here?" she asked, her voice tinged with innocence but also a hint of suspicion. You nodded, feeling your heart swell at such pure and trusting eyes. "I am looking for the apothecary," you replied, knowing that this was where your journey truly began to unfold. The girl's face brightened as if she had been waiting all night for someone like you, someone who would help bring about change in her village. She took you by the hand and led you through winding alleyways until they opened up into a small square market filled with vendors selling fruits, herbs, and other goods that seemed to glow under the morning light. At last, she stopped before an old man hunched over a wooden counter piled high with various bottles of dried leaves, roots, and crystals. His name was Elric, known throughout these parts as a master healer whose remedies often spoke louder than words. With his graying beard and eyes that seemed to hold the weight of many years, he looked up at you from behind the cluttered counter. "Ah, child," he said with a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "What brings such an unusual face to our humble village. You hesitated for a moment before deciding on your approach. This was not just any journey. It had purpose and meaning tied to saving lives through knowledge that might have been lost to time. "I've come seeking wisdom," you began, feeling the weight of the mission in every word. "Stories tell me there were times when healing extended beyond what we know today." Elric's expression softened further. "Indeed, young one. There are indeed tales of such unusual remedies and cures that have been whispered through time. Perhaps I can share a few with you." He reached out to take your hand gently but firmly, leading you both to his private study where the air was thickened by the scent of old parchment and aged medicines. Here, amidst stacks of books bound in leather and shelves lined with vials filled with mysterious liquids, he began recounting stories that had been silenced for centuries. One such tale involved a village plagued by an unusual fever during winter months, a sickness so severe it could turn even young children to stone if left untreated. In desperation, the villagers consulted ancient texts, which led them to a recipe using wolfsbane and moonflower petals. The concoction was said to not only alleviate symptoms, but also cure the malady completely. Another story spoke of an herbal elixir that could soothe deep wounds without leaving scars or causing infections, a mixture combining yarrow, chamomile, and vervain steeped in spring water from a sacred well. This healing potion worked wonders for those injured during battles or accidents, ensuring their quick recovery to resume normal life. Elric paused, his eyes reflecting the gravity of what he was sharing with you. "But there are more stories," he continued, his voice growing earnest. "One speaks of a rare flower that blooms only once every century, its nectar capable of reversing aging and even restoring lost memories. Another tells about enchanted water from an underground spring that can heal any poison or venom instantly." As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting long shadows across your path, you realized how much more there was to learn. With each tale, a new door opened, revealing pieces of knowledge that could potentially change lives for generations. You thanked Elric sincerely and promised to return soon with questions and perhaps even contributions from outside these old walls. As he watched you go, his eyes held both pride and concern, proud because someone saw the value in preserving such ancient wisdom, concerned as he knew all too well how fragile knowledge could be without proper stewardship. Leaving Elric's study behind, you stepped back out into the village square where life had resumed its daily rhythm. People bustled about their chores while children laughed and played, unaware of the secrets that now swirled within your heart and mind like a maelstrom waiting to unleash change upon this world. Tonight you've traveled through misty forests where the medicine men's unlikely secret ingredient whispered secrets of healing in every leaf, across distant fires that flickered with tales of how a common spice saved thousands from plague, its warmth spreading like comfort through cold and despair, into the depths of forgotten treasures where an ordinary pouch held the key to ancient cures, through shadows of urgency as the healers were forced to choose between time-honored practices and untested remedies, and into quiet archaeological findings that quietly filed away truths waiting for a chance to shine. It is the thread of humanity's resilience, of hope, courage, and discovery that ties all these stories together. Each journey, whether through misty paths or distant fires, reveals not just history, but also the enduring spirit that persists in seeking understanding and healing. If you'd like to keep exploring, gently tap like and subscribe so you don't miss the next journey. And if you feel awake enough, leave a comment and share where in the world you're listening from. As you drift towards sleep, let the details sink below the surface of thought. Allow the dark and quiet to take over, wrapping around your mind with tender warmth. Let go for now into the long patience of the earth that holds all stories, yours included, in its vast embrace.